Con 7 will be in Houston, Texas on Saturday, January 31st, 2026, and featuring some of your favorite debaters that you can come out and meet and see debating live, including David Wood, Daniel Hakikachu, Inspiring Philosophy, Mike Jones, and more. Check out the tickets right now in the description box. You don't want to miss it. We're expecting it to sell out. Grab your tickets now. Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not Trump is a fascist, and we're starting right now with Adam's opening statement. Thanks for being with us. Adam, the floor is all yours.
Yesterday, a man named Alex Preddy was executed in broad daylight. Federal agents dragged him off of a woman they had shoved to the ground while he tried to shield her from pepper spray. Alex was then pinned down by several officers as one began pistol whipping him and another removed his legally owned gun from its holster. He was then shot multiple times in the back and 5 more times as his body laid limp on the pavement. As this took place, one of the agents began clapping in celebration. When state authorities got a warrant to investigate, signed by a judge, federal officials still blocked them from the crime scene. Senior officials in the Trump administration have already labeled Alex an assassin and a terrorist who is, quote, brandishing a weapon. Meanwhile, the president has told us that only criminals carry guns on our streets, and the attorney general is offering to withdraw ICE from the state if it meets a set of demands, such as turning over its voter rolls. In the midst of this and countless other violations of American norms, civil rights, and basic decency, the word fascism has taken center stage. It's the word you'll hear thousands decry in unison as they march on the streets, and it's the word I'll be using today to describe the ascent of Donald Trump in American politics. The obvious question then becomes, what does it even mean? And the truth is, scholars have argued that question for decades, but are still farther than ever from consensus. For the purposes of this debate and my use of the label more broadly, I'll be drawing from 2 of the foremost scholars on the subject, Jason Stanley and Robert Paxton. Together, their frameworks effectively lay out both the characteristics of fascism and the mechanics of its growth. In his aptly titled book, How Fascism Works, Jason Stanley lays out his 10 pillars of fascism. Characteristics which, when they emerge together, can be used to identify fascist movements. These include the mythic past, which is harkened back to as a nation's true identity, propaganda used to mask unpopular methods and goals with ideals that are widely accepted, unreality calling into question and manufacturing what is true. Hold on. Victimhood assigned to traditionally dominant groups who see equality as a threat to their position, and law and order used as a framing to divide the nation into those who are lawful by nature and those who are inherently lawless. Of course, all of these pillars can exist in isolation. Many even appear together, often overlapping with other forms of authoritarianism. But fascism should enter the conversation when they emerge concurrently and consistently as a pattern over time. That pattern is precisely what is laid out in the work of fascism's most prominent scholar, Robert Paxton, whose functional analysis of the term redefined the entire field, and in fact, directly refutes the Italian definition of the term I've heard Andrew use before. In his essay titled The 5 Stages of Fascism, he says, the words of fascist intellectuals, even if we accept for the moment that they constitute fundamental philosophical texts, correspond only distantly with what fascist movements do after they have power. Early fascist programs are poor guides to later fascist policy. He goes on to argue that fascism isn't actually an ideology, rather it's a dynamic political process, based more in mobilizing passions than a formal doctrine. Specifically, he lays out the 5 stages of its growth, like a cancer metastasizing within the body politic. Stage 1 is simply the emergence of proto-fascist sentiments, a discrediting of liberal and democratic values in favor of nationalism. Of course, this has been ubiquitous in modern democracies for decades now. But in stage 2, this sentiment takes root in national politics, often by becoming a player in the scene through a political party. Its success here is dependent on the presence of weakness or deadlock, either a humiliated state seen as a nation in decline, or a polarized one, where the right refuses to accept the legitimacy of a growing left. Stage 3 is the acquisition of power, a milestone that many fascist movements are never able to reach. Interestingly, Paxton points out that this often happens through legitimate means, as fascists find common cause with conservatives, while downplaying the excesses conservatives would find threatening. The 4th stage is the exercise of power, though this is actually not unilateral. Instead, fascist leaders are often forced, at least initially, to govern in association with the conservative elites they've joined, creating a four-way power struggle between the leader, his party, regular state functionaries like agency heads or judges, and traditional elites like churches, the army, and big businesses. This all culminates with stage 5, where fascism can go in one of two directions: radicalization or entropy. Either the leader or his party double down on the extreme goals they had temporarily hidden, or the traditional elites win out and the state settles into a more default authoritarianism. While complex, these frameworks make a few things clear. Fascism is a style of politics. It's an orientation towards the use of power, relying on messaging just as much as its actual governance. And importantly, it doesn't always win. That's obviously a lot to remember, so for this debate, I've tried to distill it into something more concise. Fascism is a reactionary, ultranationalist, authoritarian movement characterized by appeal to a mythical past, malicious delegitimization of institutions, and pursuit/use of power to suppress and vilify outgroups. It arises as a response to perceived upheaval of sociocultural norms, national embarrassment, and/or elitism in society. This is a diagnostic definition of what we can call the fascist minimum, the true core of a concept that typically appears in many different forms. But to be even more clear, I'll be making 3 affirmative claims today. 1, that Trump is an authoritarian whose political project seeks to centralize and consolidate power by engaging with our laws in bad faith. 2, that he uses his position of power to vilify, intimidate, and oppress his opposition or those he designates as members of an outgroup. And 3, that he builds, fuels, and justifies this movement with allusions to a once glorious, now desecrated past, which can only be reattained through ultranationalism. I'm eager for Andrew to challenge these 3 claims and invite him to do so. But I am also curious about what his position is. Does he believe Trump is not a fascist, or is he just unsure? Because if it's the latter, I'm happy to convince him of my position. But if it's the former, I also have a lot of questions for him. Namely, that even if his definition is more narrow than mine, how could he not at least classify Trump as an authoritarian with fascistic tendencies? The man who says, quote, "I alone can fix it," who called for the termination of the US Constitution and said, quote, "He who saves his country violates no law." The man who calls his opposition vermin and in speeches to our military calls them the enemy from within, while saying that undocumented immigrants poison the blood of our country. Of course, he cloaks this darkness in the veil of ultranationalism, making America great again, saying the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer, and that, quote, "the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America, and through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other." Maybe Andrew will tell us not to believe our lying ears and eyes, or that Trump just says a lot of shit. Maybe he'll reference Article 2 to excuse virtually anything done with presidential powers, or downplay all the cases of lies, rights violations, and noncompliance as good faith mistakes or novel legal theories. But after watching a man get executed and hearing the federal government lie to our face about it, I'm frankly sick of hearing excuses and false equivalencies. I'm sick of being told to call stage 3 cancer a benign tumor just because the illness isn't terminal yet. So I hope this debate can serve as a detailed exploration of Trump's politics and an interrogation of both my 3 central claims and Andrew's claims to the contrary. I want to close with a quote from someone who seems to agree with my position here, Donald Trump, who said just months ago, "I did get elected for crime, but I didn't get elected for what we're doing. This is many, many steps above. I want to thank Stephen Miller. I'd love to have him come up and explain his true feelings, maybe not his truest feelings. That might be going a little bit too far."
Thank you very much for that opening, Adam. We're going to kick it over to Andrew for his opening as well. But first, quick housekeeping. Folks, if you didn't know, DebateCon 7 in Houston, Texas. It's less than a week away. It's Saturday, January 31st. Grab your tickets now. They're linked in the description box. It's going to be huge. We're expecting it to sell out. With that, we're going to kick it over to Andrew for his opening as well. Andrew, thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Damn it, Con. You were the one. I thought you were going to, I was hoping it was going to be a whole different thing, but it's just the normal TDS shit. So it's fine. This is exactly what the debate I prepared for, unfortunately, but I had hope. I had hope, Con. As we engage in this debate on if Trump is or is not a fascist, there are a few things I want to point out in the outset of the debate, a few tactics which are going to be going on. If I were my debate opponent, I would fallaciously argue that Trump isn't, quote, a full-blown fascist, but he's just mostly a fascist. And I'm very certain this is where he's going to go with this. So I wanted to, in the outset, prepare a demonstration for why this sort of arguing makes no sense and should ultimately be rejected. By the way, it's exactly what he did. I will do this by talking about chimpanzees and bananas. You see, a chimpanzee, by some accounts, shares 98% of the same DNA as a human being. Does that make a chimp 98% human? Do they seem 98% human to you, or do they seem like something else entirely? Here, I want to demonstrate this principle. This is a banana. It shares 60% of genes with human beings. Does it seem like it's 60% a human being, though? No, it doesn't. If I peel it, like I just did, and I eat it, am I engaging in 60% cannibalism? No, I'm not. Of course not. It's ridiculous on its face. But it's likely my opponent's going to try to tell you that Trump shares X amount of traits with fascists, exactly what he did. And so he's mostly a fascist. He's mostly a fascist, which is mind-boggling to me, but the standard fare argument of the idiot left. This needs to be rejected immediately for the obvious reason, which is ideologies have overlap but differ greatly in what they actually are and why they are or are not the thing. My opponent defines fascism, and I quote, "Fascism is a reactionary, ultranationalist, authoritarian movement characterized by appeal to a mythical past, malicious delegitimizing of institutions, and pursuit of power to suppress outgroups and vilify outgroups. It arises as a response to perceived upheaval of sociocultural norms, national embarrassment, or elitism in society." He bases this definition largely, he says, on fascist scholars like Robert Paxton, Jason Stanley. I think that they would reject his definition, honestly, because they don't consider Trump to be a fascist. They don't consider him to be a fascist, which is hilarious. Okay? Even Paxton, post J6, right? When he said that he's fine with the label now, still doesn't consider Trump to actually be a fascist. Under his criteria of fascism, which I'll grant for the sake of argument, Sanders would be a fascist. Bernie Sanders, the guy this guy likes. If we took out ultra-nationalists, he would fit every criteria Khan listed. Sanders has an authoritarian movement. He wants to nationalize many industries away from the private sector. He would need state power to do so in a way which would obviously be oppressive to private interested parties and people. He appeals to and speaks positively of communist nation, appeals to their past policies and glories. He delegitimizes institutions maliciously like healthcare, police forces, ICE, all sorts of things. He wants to use state power to vilify the outgroup, millionaires and billionaires, and he wants power to do so. Now, is Sanders a fascist? Of course not. This is an example of how nebulous this broad definition can be used because it's just silly. Would this make him 60% fascist? No, it's ridiculous because the core pillar isn't there anymore. It's not there anymore for Sanders than it is for Trump. And that's this one pillar, ultranationalism. While I have a very different definition from Mr. Khan, I had to use a Star Trek reference of Khan, right, on what fascism actually is, and the pillars which hold it up, I would like to point out by his metric, Trump isn't a fascist and can't be because he isn't an ultranationalist. And without that, the whole pillar and house of cards falls down. Nationalism is a belief your country should come first before other nations. Ultranationalism is the belief your nation comes before everything else. God, family, morals, job, interest. The state becomes the core of the ideology, and it is an ideology, not just a core of traits. Trump is barely even a nationalist, let alone an ultranationalist. MAGA, his base of supporters, isn't asked or required to put Trump before God or family or other value systems they may hold. Not to mention, he has some pretty anti-nationalist policies like gold cards to buy citizenship for foreign nationals, or 600,000 imported Chinese students, or hundreds of thousands of Indians brought in for cheap labor, or any number of different anti-nationalist policies that I can point at. Tons of policies which Trump puts forward, and I could argue if they're barely nationalistic at all, but certainly he isn't an ultra-nationalist, and without that pillar, he can't be a fascist. Now, I'm making a positive case here, to be fair, and so is my opponent. I'm saying Trump is not a fascist. He's saying he is. So I want to be charitable there. This is not I get to stay on the fence and just pepper him about his definition. He gets to interrogate me as well. That's fair, right?
Yep.
I'm happy on demand to provide my definition for fascism, its cores, philosophy of the third position, if you would like. I spent a lot of time in my debate career arguing against the tenets of the third position, i.e. fascism. What it is, its philosophy, its originators like Giovanni Gentili, Mussolini, others, the ideas of corporatism and the fasci, what that represents and why it represents that. What's happening here in actuality is this. The left and progressives like my opponent, in general, they want to use morally infused language to demonize their opposition by comparing them to Nazis and fascists, which they think are synonyms. They want all of the horrors of fascism to be laid at the feet of their political opposition, even if the political opposition doesn't share the ideology. And if they don't share the ideology, they just come up with new ways to define the ideology so they can make them share it. It's not that Trump is a fascist, you see. It's that the Holocaust happened and Mustache Man has the same ideology as Trump. So he's like them. And his allies in Italy and the fascists did the same thing too. This is what gives them the perceived moral high ground in which to resist the evil fascists. And that's all this has ever been. Purely performative, all lies, which is going to totally fall apart when I put this to the question. Watch. And with that, I'm happy to get into this. Now, I have each definition for semantic certainty that you could ever want. If you want ultranationalism, you want definitions for anything in my position, I've got them on hand. We're ready to go. I hope you got the same thing so that we can skip the semantics and get right to the meat of it, right? But yeah, I'm with that. I'm ready to get right into this.
You got it. With that, we'll jump into the open dialogue. First, folks, if you didn't know, if you can't make it to DebateCon 7 this Saturday in Houston, Texas, you can watch it live from home. It's a perk for our Final Word channel membership tier. Check out those memberships right now by clicking the join button. And also, if you haven't yet, hit the like button, whether you're watching here or elsewhere. We're going to kick it into the open dialogue. And gentlemen, do I understand you guys are cool with debating each of your definitions in terms of does Trump fit the definition of...
Well, each of our positions, my position would be that Trump is not a fascist. My opponent is saying that he is a fascist. And so we'll be debating from both of those angles. I don't care if the front half of the debate is loaded against me or against you. It doesn't really matter. I think it's fair to pepper me about what I think fascism is, just like I'm about to pepper you with what you think fascism is.
Sure.
Okay.
Either of you have a preference on whose definition we use first?
Well, let's go with Khan's. He's the one who's making the positive claim that he is the thing, and then we can get into mine. Or we can, even as we go, you can ask me if you'd like. That's fine.
I am curious, Andrew, can you just quickly share your broad-based definition of fascism that you'd use as like a shorthand?
Yeah. So fascism is an ideology that proposes corporatist, palingenetic, and ultranationalist state. That's what fascism is.
Okay. I just want to start off by addressing a few of the things you said in your opening statement. So
yeah, hang on
yeah.
real quick, because I want to get some semantics out of the way, if you don't mind, just to make sure that we got this right. Ultranationalism is defined by you as what?
I would say that ultranationalism frames greatness of nations as a zero-sum game, where a nation's glory is derived from dominating other countries.
I have a quote here from those original fascists. I want to see if you will agree to this. Ultranationalists, from their view, all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state.
Is this an ideological thing or a descriptive thing?
Of course it's ideological.
My definition of fascism isn't even ideological, so I would reject that off.
Okay, how's it not ideological?
Like I said, it's a socio-political phenomenon. That is how Robert Paxton and Jason Stanley describe it. And just to quickly clarify there...
It's not just how they describe it.
Hold on. They both call Trump a fascist. Robert Paxton says he doesn't use the word fascist because he finds it's basically colloquially lost all meaning. But after January 6th, Robert Paxton did say that Trump now meets the characteristics of fascism.
Nope.
And Jason Stanley has been saying the same for years.
No, well, first of all, Stanley's a political hack. Paxton is serious.
Of course you're going to say that.
No, so hang on. Paxton is serious. He's not a political hack. Like, that guy is an actual, like, he has studied fascism. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Stanley, yeah, he's a political hack. He's a leftist. Come on, man. Paxton, though, he's more politically neutral. But you're basically operating off Paxton anyway, not really Stanley, at least by the definition that you're giving. Paxton himself did not actually say this. You're making this up. Here's what actually happened. Paxton has been saying for years that Trump does not fall under the criteria of being a fascist. Post J6, he said he was fine with him being labeled that. He was very careful with his words, though. He didn't actually say there's anything new here which makes Trump fall under this label. Only that he was fine now with the label because it had some utility use.
Did you not read his Newsweek article?
I did. Well, not his Newsweek. It wasn't Newsweek.
He wrote a piece in Newsweek after January 6th where he said, I'm now calling Trump a fascist.
Well, hang on. Let me pull the article up here.
Sure.
1 second. We'll make sure that we have it correct. But yeah, that was my interpretation from it because of the very first line. Read the very first 2 lines. It's all vibes and feelings, bro. Just read it. Read it out loud.
Lines of what?
Read the first 2 lines of the article that you're referencing.
Sure, let me pull it up.
Yep, pull it up.
I'm curious why I pulled that up. Where are you deriving that he didn't call Trump a fascist?
Well, he was very cautious with his language in this article.
So it's literally titled, hold on, let me make sure, by Robert
It doesn't matter
Paxton.
what it's titled. It matters what
I've
he said.
hesitated to call Donald Trump a fascist until now.
Yeah,
I
that's
resisted
what
for
the
a long time applying the fascist label to Donald J. Trump. He did indeed display some telltale signs in 2016. I mean, you want me to read the whole thing, or he goes on to say
just
he's now
right in the first line, right?
uh-huh.
I've hesitated to label Donald Trump a fascist, even though he had telltale signs,
Past
right?
tense.
Yeah. What was the
Hesitated
new
past tense,
What's
right?
the new criteria according to your definition that Trump fell under after J6? What is it?
I believe he said the leveraging of political violence. I can find specifically in
Yeah.
the
What about
article.
you though? You have a specific definition here.
Mhm.
Did you agree with Paxton that before J6 Trump wasn't a fascist?
I would think that Trump was probably in stages 2 or 3 of fascism prior to January 6th, and I think after that we started arriving between stages 3 and 4.
So he was at at a certain percentage.
It's not percentages,
We're back
it's
to the
stages.
argument from banana.
It's a cute analogy, but the biology of a fruit is not analogous to a political
Donald
movement.
Trump hasn't met any of the stages of fascism. What stages? According to the historic definition of fascism, what stages are you talking about?
The ones that I read in my opening statement?
Yeah, fascism was a response to socialism. That's what it's a response to. It's a third position. It's a third position.
You're describing one iteration of fascism.
No, that's the only iteration of it. Show me where else.
According to you, but
name
this isn't
another
even
fascist
settled,
nation besides
this isn't even
Mussolini's
settled in
Italy.
academic circles.
Well, then I don't want to hear you say it is.
I'm not. I'm giving you my definition, which I think is based on scholars who are better.
Your definition
and
is
you're being pedantic about it.
I'm using the core arguments from the architects who made fascism.
And I just told you why
saying,
Robert Paxton said that's dumb to do.
Here's what you're doing. You're saying, I'm using the interpretation of other people for the source material. I'm saying, I read the fucking source material.
You clearly didn't, though.
I clearly did. What do you want to know about
You literally
actual
claimed that Robert
originating
Paxton does
fascism?
not think Donald Trump's a fascist.
He doesn't. There's no new criteria added.
Literally, it's not about new criteria. It's about Trump's behavior changing such that he now
said
falls
that
under
he's
a
now
definition.
fine with the label. That's it.
And I can also, if you're talking about, okay, this is just, what do you call him? Giovanni Gentile is the guy who describes what fascism is. And you think Robert Paxton is valid here. He himself has said the words of fascist intellectuals, even if we accept.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You're conflating a couple things.
Okay.
I agree that Paxton is a popular scholar for fascism, namely because he basically is trying to give you guys a name the trait argument and leftists love him. Not that I cede that his authority on fascism.
You have to poison the well with that.
Not that I cede that his authority on fascism is correct, because it has nothing to do ultimately with third positionism. And I completely reject it based on the definition that I gave for fascism, which is 3 core pillars. And you need to have all 3 of them there. Starting with yours, though, your definition. How's Trump an ultra-nationalist?
I actually have it written down right here. So he, hold on, there we go. He builds, fuels, and justifies his movement with allusions to a once glorious, now desecrated past, which can only be reattained. Can I finish? And you'd hear the word ultranationalist in there. He builds, fuels, and justifies his movement with allusions to a once glorious, now desecrated past, which can only be reattained through ultranationalism. He talks about the return of a golden age of the nation and an era of decline that went after
Yeah,
it.
you're talking about what's called palegenetics here.
That's
you're
from
talking about
a different scholar,
palegenetic.
Roger something.
Yeah, you're
That's a
talking,
different
but that's
scholar.
what it is. It's palegenetic. So the thing
I
is
didn't use the
like
word palegenetic.
you don't
there's
need to,
overlap
but that's
between
what it's
definitions
describing.
here.
What you're describing there is not ultranationalism.
I just want to be clear. There's plenty of overlap between different definitions.
What does
here,
that have to do with ultra-nationalism, dude? Nothing you just said has anything to do with ultra-nationalism.
I already answered your question
hang on,
earlier.
Stop, bro. Stop. Let me finish. It's
Okay,
tautological.
then don't ask a question. Don't let me answer.
It's tautological. Okay, what you're doing is you're saying the way that Trump is ultra-nationalistic is because he says things that can only be achieved through ultra-nationalism. That's not telling me how he's.
I think you're misunderstanding my claim.
Well, then tell me how he's
so ultranationalism is sort of an aesthetic or a communication strategy in this case, where his governance frames American greatness as a zero-sum game. For America to be great, it must maximally use its power in a might makes right framework.
That's just nationalism.
How would you distinguish? When does it become
I already
ultra?
told you, but I'll tell you again.
When does it become ultra? Where's the line for you?
I'll tell you exactly where the line comes in. Yeah. When it becomes that all loyalty is to the state, that's ultra-nationalism. When everything goes all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. The whole point of fascism was to utilize ultra-nationalism, loyalty to the state, to introduce corporatism. It couldn't work without ultra-nationalism.
So do you think ultra-nationalism...
Hang on. Because ultranationalism itself, right, is not corporatism is not even possible absent that. So threshold breaker is not. So let me ask you the same question in reverse. When does ultranationalism become just regular nationalism?
I mean, it's obviously a blurry line. There's not going to be one
you don't
moment
know.
where like, oh, now all of a sudden it's no.
So
we
you
can
don't
talk
know?
about specific examples that would illustrate where the line is. I don't know if you want me to give you a one-sentence summary of a topic that scholars have been debating for decades. You want me to
hang on.
You
can't say to me, Andrew, where's the threshold breaker? And I give it to you. And I ask you the same question reverse. Where's your threshold breaker?
No, because you're the one who took issue with the threshold. I didn't say anything about thresholds. You're the one who took issue with it.
You did. You said you asked specifically this question. When does nationalism become ultranationalism? I gave you the exact criteria.
Why did I ask that question?
I gave you because you haven't told me what ultranationalism is.
No, because you said Trump, that's nationalism, not ultranationalism.
Yeah, that's nationalism, correct.
So
what's the difference? Well, what's the difference between nationalism and ultranationalism?
Maybe we're talking about different things here. Do you think ultranationalism cannot be a rhetorical strategy? It's just an ideology?
Yes.
So it can't be a rhetorical strategy?
Well, I mean, you can allude, anything could be a rhetorical strategy.
Okay, so when I'm talking about fascism, I'm talking about number one, how it behaves, and number two, how it presents itself.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it is the thing.
And that is where ultranationalism comes into it. Just like the mythic past he describes, I don't believe there was actually a mythic past, Andrew.
So what's ultranationalism? What is it?
I already told you. It frames American greatness as a zero-sum game. For America to be great, it must maximally use its power in a might makes right framework.
And what's the difference between that and nationalism?
It's not a zero-sum game necessarily.
So what's the difference? Is there a difference or not?
Zero-sum game?
Is there a difference or not?
Yes, I think ultranationalism takes nationalists into zero-sum territory, which changes how it's going to behave on a world stage and starts overlapping with imperialism as well.
No, ultranationalism from a fascistic point of view.
From your fascistic point of view, from your definition.
From Giovanni Gentile, the orchestrator of fascism, the
This is like asking
a
cult member how cults work and using his ideology to define like the science of cults. Like it just doesn't make sense to take one iteration of fascism in Italy and say this is how we define all fascism now. Like why can't we have a diagnostic framework here?
Ultranationalism has to be distinct from nationalism somehow. When you say the things that you just said can be attributed to nationalism, here's why. And not ultranationalism. Let's look at the distinctions here. When you say you're a nationalist, you're putting your nation before other nations. That is a zero-sum game.
Not necessarily, no.
Most of the time, it's a zero-sum game. The idea here is if it's good for me, right? If there's two choices presented to me, this one will be good for you and me.
No,
or
but
this one
ultranationalism says,
stop, bro. Or this one over here will be much better for me than you, right? Then you take that one. That's usually nation first. Ultranationalism, the threshold delineator here, is that the state itself becomes a body. And that's where the allegiance and loyalty must always lie, is to the state.
That's the ideology.
From the people's perspective, that's what actual ultranationalism is. You're talking about just nationalism, the idea of putting your nation above others. So what?
Putting your nation above others is different than saying that every instance of another nation being great is somehow subtracting from the finite amount of greatness that exists, and America must seize this greatness. If someone else is doing well, it must mean we've been ripped off as a country. That is one step above just nationalism.
So let me ask you this. When you say it's fundamentally un-American, which you say all the time, what does that mean?
When did I say it's fundamentally un-American?
When you say things are fundamentally un-American, this is an un-American thing.
When did I say that in this entire
I don't
debate?
remember the exact debate, but you did say that, well, that sounds un-American.
Oh, you're saying at some point in the past. Okay.
Yeah, that's un-American. What does that mean?
It
When you
depends
say
on the
it's
context.
un-American.
It depends on the context in which
Well-
I said it. I'm
well, are
probably
you-
alluding to like liberal democratic values of the
So
Constitution.
you're alluding to some
broadly.
like previous time when you think things were more American?
No, I'm alluding to values.
So ideology.
Values. I mean, ideology can be kind of like a formalization of values, but
I don't
they're not
even-
necessarily synonymous.
I think they are. I don't know how you get to values without ideology.
Okay, you can just have them as like a sort of like a, what do you call it? Like the premise of what you believe. You can just have.
I have
the
values. I have
inherently.
values. What's the framework for them?
Do you have to be ideological to have values?
Yeah, I think you do.
So people that don't have an ideological framework, they don't value anything, they have no preferences, or
Yeah, usually they're called moral anti-realist or nihilist. So yeah,
no, but they would
generally
still
don't.
descriptively have values. They have preferences. They choose to do certain things over others.
Well,
they value certain things and
hang
not
on.
others, right?
If they have preferences, then we're getting into ideological territory and dogmatic territory, right?
Well, an ideology is going to be like internally consistent usually and codified or
Yeah.
formalized.
So if you
version
say
of
I have a
values.
preference for things I like, that's the highest value. Now we're in
That's
dogmatic
not really
territory.
an ideology, though.
That is really an ideology.
Okay, I don't know if
It
you want
is
to disagree
really
to disagree here. This
100%
is
an
like we're going in
ideology.
circles on this.
But
I don't know.
anyway, that aside, the distinction here is on ultranationalism versus nationalism.
Yeah.
The whole idea for ultranationalism within all of the framework in World War II, especially,
Yeah, I understood
right,
your definition.
was not just with Germany. It was, right? It's 1,000-year millennia. It's going to be the Third Reich 1,000 years into the
Mhm.
future from Benito Mussolini. This is going to be futurism, man. We're going to be Italians with cool cars and we slash each other's faces with swords and shit. We love this stuff. And we have part of this is going to last for, 2,000 years. That's what it's going to be. It's an ideology which is formatted around the loyalty and body of the state being adhered to as the highest value of the citizen. That is ultranationalism.
That's how
Trump
you're
does not
defining it.
run. Trump does not run anything with, well, you can't give me a threshold breaker. You just say, I don't know.
Wait, do you think that two things can't be distinct if there isn't a very like
I think
solid
you're not
line in
making a
between them?
case. You're not making a case, though,
No,
for how
but
these are
the-
distinct.
The supposed issue you're trying to point out in my logic, I'm just trying to clarify if you'd hold that standard in other situations. Do you think if there's like a blurry delineation or a blurry distinction between two concepts, that means we ought to call them the same thing?
Not always, unless we have something which is conceptually a delineation which is
So-
provable.
Do you accept that there can be ambiguity in delineations of concepts that are very
Sure.
closely related?
Of course,
That's all I'm saying.
that's part of my argument, but it has nothing
Part
to
of
do
my
with
argument as well.
has nothing to do with this argument.
It has
What you're
everything to do
asking
with
me
this
to
argument.
do, what you're asking me to do is in a vacuum tell you if there can be overlap or ambiguity between concepts or relations of ideology.
Or I
I
guess not in a
concede-
vacuum in
hang
real
on,
life as well.
I
then, huh?
concede that that is the case,
Uh-huh.
right? But in this case, I'm not conceding that. So do you agree with me that while I can concede that that can be the case,
Mhm.
that it can also be the case where there is something which is distinct that
Yes,
can
and
be
I think
pointed
that
to?
the
Hang on,
last
hang on,
place
hang on,
you'd
hang on.
find
Let
that
me
is
finish the
social
question. Let me
sciences.
finish the question.
Yeah.
That there is delineations which can be made between ideologies that can be easily pointed to, like Marxism, for instance. I can give you a very easy delineation between Marxism and other forms of ideology. Stateless society could be one of those, right? Things that we could agree to as being distinct, right? And what does a stateless society mean and how we get into that? In this case, you're not actually telling me where it is that how we get to the
Told
ultra-nationalist
you
thing.
multiple times.
No, you didn't. You just said
And
there's ambiguity.
I'm glad you brought up the Marxism example. So yeah, you can probably give me easy distinctions between Marxism and like capitalism, but giving me distinctions between different types of Marxism becomes a lot more blurry. So it is true, there are many situations where delineations can be pretty binary and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. The last place where that would be true is the social sciences. Like,
Okay,
that's
tell
not
me
the
that.
biology of
I
a
just want to
fruit.
hear the distinction then. What's the distinction between ultranationalism and nationalism?
I've told you making it a zero-sum game multiple times. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
how
but
many more
how
times
does
you
that
say
different than just regular nationalism?
Regular nationalism doesn't necessitate zero-sum frameworks.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Of like regular
Of
nationalism.
a nationalistic policy that's not putting the nation first in a zero-sum category.
Well, it's putting the nation first, but not in a zero-sum way.
Okay, give me an example.
So this
of
could
that.
be like doing protectionist policies.
How can you
on-
be putting the nation first unless that was a zero-sum? How does the nation come first if you're compromising on the nation coming first?
What are you asking?
How are you putting the nation first if you're willing to
Yeah.
compromise on putting the nation first?
What do you mean willing to compromise on putting the nation
Well, if
first?
it's the case, you agree with me, nationalism is putting your nation first, right?
It's kind of a short definition, but okay.
Yes. So
I
if that's the
guess-
case, how do you put your nation first if you're willing at the same time to not put your nation first? If you're willing
This
at the
question is
same
like
time,
unrelated to what I've
no,
been
it's
saying.
completely related. How can you
How is it
put
related?
how can you put your nation first? Because you're saying that
Mhm.
nationalism is nation 1st,
Mhm.
but it's not zero sum. I'm arguing that it has to be zero sum or it can't be nation first. That's the zero sum. The nation comes first.
Zero sum meaning that if the nation's doing well, that means that other countries have to be doing worse in proportion to how much better the nation's
That's
doing.
not. Well, wait.
That's
Wait
what
a
zero
second.
sum is.
Wait a second. It's also zero sum to say your nation comes first. That's a zero sum categorical statement, right?
It doesn't have to be zero sum.
Why? Then how
Your
can you? How
nation
can you
can be
always?
first, while
It's
other
just- does your
nations are also
nation
doing very
always-
well.
But does your nation always come first?
Hold on, you understand that like even people that believe in like multilateralism and like
sure.
cooperation internationally, they can also wanna put
Does
their
your nation
first.
always come first?
What are you even talking about? Right now?
In nationalism, are you always putting your nation first?
Yeah, broadly speaking, yes.
Are you uncompromising in putting your nation always first?
It depends on what we're talking about in the specific iteration of it, because you're defining it as an
Well, then
ideology.
you're not. Then it's
No,
P and
because
not P.
the
It's a
issue here-
philosophical
the issue is-
contradiction.
The issue is you're trying to debate me on the ideology of ultranationalism, and then I'm defending the rhetorical strategy of ultranationalism.
I don't know. This is not a great pivot for you.
No, it's what
Is
I've been
it-
saying since the
Is it
beginning
the
of the debate,
case?
Andrew.
Yeah, but it's incoherent. This is incoherent. It's P
You're
and not
making
P.
it incoherent by going in circles and asking
It's
the same
P
question
and
over
not
and
P.
over.
Well, because what you just said is incoherent. If it's P and not P. So the idea here is, Andrew, nationalism means you always put the nation first.
Mhm.
Always, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, but then the question is, what does putting the nation first mean?
Okay, hang on. If you're always putting the nation first, then it's already zero sum because it's an always statement.
Wait, what do you
It's
think zero sum
always.
means?
Means no compromise, no negotiation, no nothing, right?
No,
Isn't
no,
that zero
zero,
sum?
zero sum means there's like a finite amount in the pie, and that if someone's getting more of the pie, that necessarily means that someone else cannot get more of it, right? So if
Wait
America's
a
doing
second.
better, yeah,
Hang on. Let's back up.
uh-huh.
You think that zero? Let's just make sure that we got this right. A zero sum game.
Hmm.
What are we referencing there?
I'm referencing a situation where one person doing better necessarily means that someone else has to do worse.
Okay, and so the nation, the United States, always, to put it first, needs to be the one that's always doing best, right? Because
Yeah,
we're
but
putting
that
it first.
doesn't mean
Okay,
zero
then it's
sum.
zero sum.
No,
You're
it's
making
not.
an always statement that
Hold
we
on.
always, even at the expense of other nations,
So you're
must be
saying
doing best.
it's not possible for the nation to be put first and for other countries to also be doing very well, but just not in
Hang
first
on.
place?
Here's the problem with this, right? I can
Okay.
concede this point, but you still have to concede mine.
What's your point?
So the thing is like, sure, you can say that the United States can do well, and you can also do well. But when we're talking about the uncompromising positions, that the United States is always going to be first in this, right? That's uncompromising,
in rhetoric,
no matter what, not just in rhetoric, in action.
in how I'm using it, it's uncompromising in rhetoric. And
Oh,
again,
okay, now you're going
the
to pivot
United
again.
States-
So not in
people
action.
can rewind the debate. I've
Oh,
been saying that
God.
it's a rhetorical
So
strategy since you
ridiculous.
asked me first about ultranationalism. So if people think that's a pivot, they can just rewind like a few minutes back. Andrew, it's pretty simple here. Someone
fascism
can be,
is
hold on,
rhetorical.
let me just quickly address that. It's a mix of rhetorical strategies and behaviors. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that, but again, ultranationalism,
Mhm.
I'm referring to here as a rhetorical strategy that is used as the justification for the authoritarianism
Mhm.
and the vilification.
Yeah,
It's
but
the
that
fuel
doesn't
for the
get us-
machine.
Yeah, but that doesn't get us any close to what ultranationalism actually is.
It doesn't
And
get
that's-
you any closer to it, but
It
I
doesn't get
think-
anybody any closer because it's tautological. It's just like ultranationalism is the very thing that we're appealing to justify this other thing, and that's what ultranationalism is. It's like that's a tautology.
No,
the
I
thing is-
explained what ultranationalism
No,
is, and then
you really
explained its
didn't. You said
functional
it's a zero
utility in
sum-
fascist
You said it's a
movements.
zero-sum game.
when it comes to nationalism. Yes, it's an
Okay, so
extreme
are
form
you
of
saying-
nationalism.
Are you saying that ultranationalists then can't make compromises with other nations?
Substantively, they could, but they'll never admit it rhetorically.
Okay, wait a second. So
As I've been
Benito Mussolini, the fascist, would never admit that they compromised with any other nation.
I mean, if it was an allied nation, he might, because it's going to be like
then
actually bolstering his own.
What are you talking about?
If the compromise is not at the detriment of his own nationalist sentiment, then what would be the issue with that?
Well, because in this case, I can actually give you examples of where fascists compromised with other nations, which would have been them making a compromise, even though they were
How long do you want to stay
ultranationalists.
on the ultranationalism thing?
Well, I think that it's the core of your pillar.
It's no, I gave you my 3 affirmative claims and invited you to
Yeah, I
challenge
know,
each
but you
one.
also gave me a definition, didn't you?
Right, and then I condensed that definition into 3 affirmative claims for the
Yeah,
purposes
but-
of this debate.
But I'm saying that well, hang on. The 3 affirmative claims don't have anything to do with fascism. They have to do with
They do.
authoritarianism.
Nope.
Okay, let's start with claim 1.
Sure, I can. Do you want me to read all 3, or do you want to just read
Read
number
all
1 for
3.
now? Okay. The first claim is Trump is an authoritarian whose political project seeks to centralize and consolidate power by engaging with our laws in bad faith.
Sure, I concede the point.
2, he uses his position of power to vilify, intimidate, and oppress his opposition and those he designates as member of outgroups.
I cede the point.
3, he builds, fuels, and justifies this movement with allusions to a once glorious, now desecrated past, which can only be reattained through ultranationalism.
I cede that point too.
Cool. Thanks for having us, James.
That's not me ceding to fascism.
Well, you're ceding that, by my definition, Trump is a fascist.
No, because your definition has a key word here, which is not in any of those 3 pillars. Ultra nationalist.
I just said that was
And
at the end of the 3rd pillar.
Here's the problem.
Or was
with
it the
it.
end
No,
of the
no,
third
you
pillar?
said he appeals. You're saying he appeals to some like rhetorical ultranationalism or something.
Yes.
That's not ultranationalism.
To you, it's not.
No, it's just not.
Okay, cool.
It's just objectively not ultranationalism. Even if I concede all 3 of these points, it doesn't demonstrate Trump's a fascist
Why not?
because the metrics for ultranationalism are not in place. None of them.
Because you're using
All
a different
other
definition of ultranationalism
No,
than
because
I'm
I'm
intending
using
with
the
my
definition of ultranationalism.
So is there like a consensus
From
on
the
what
fascist,
ultranationalism
yes,
means?
yes, there's a consensus of ultranationalism versus nationalism.
Who's
That's
the
one thing.
consensus between?
Well, in this case,
You
we
and
would be
yourself?
we're looking at the architects of fascism, what they considered it to be,
And I
which is
already
Giovanni
explained to
Gentile.
you why appealing to the architects of this ideology, who are always going to dress up their methods with ideological flourish, is not really relevant in the descriptive
It's the
analysis
most
of whether or not
relevant.
someone is a fascist.
It's the most relevant is whether or not they follow the actual ideology. What you're trying to do is name the trait, some vegan or name the trait argument for fascists.
I don't know
It's
where
like, no,
veganism came from. You're the one who brought up
fascism-
bananas earlier.
Fascism is but that wasn't to demonstrate anything vegan related.
I know.
So
I'm
anyway,
with
the
you.
point is here is that fascists themselves told us what they considered ultranationalism to be within the
Yes, and
state.
cult members tell us what their cult
nothing-
is all about.
Their ideology.
Yeah, of the cult, but then they're gonna
Yeah.
conveniently ignore that ideology for purposes of
So
achieving power.
you're saying that you're going to tell Christians what they believe more than Christians are going to tell you what they believe.
I'm not here to talk about religion, so no, I'm not telling Christians anything.
Well, do you consider Christianity an ideology?
It's a religion. I mean, I guess it's an ideology, sure.
Yeah. So the thing is like, why would you yield to them on their ideology then and what they believe?
Because religions, especially organized religions, are by definition going to be formalized doctrines that you have to adhere
And
to.
with dogmas, right?
Yeah, sure.
And don't you consider
And we're talking
Giovanni-
about
hang on,
socio-political
don't you
phenomenon.
don't you consider these social political advocates of this particular ideology to
Mm-hmm.
have written dogma pertaining to the very ideology that they then instituted in their nation? In Gentile's case and Fascist Italy's case, they brought on 22 sectors of new corporatism.
Yeah.
They had dogma that they actually acted on. It wasn't in a vacuum. They acted on the dogma,
Let me ask you a question about
instituted
that.
the dogma.
Would they deviate from that ideological dogma if it meant expanding or consolidating their power, or would they say, no, I have to stick to the dogma, like the fascist leaders in those situations?
Well, and I think in Italy, they would not have deviated. In Franco's Spain, they may have deviated.
Sure. All I'm trying to get at here is that what a fascist says fascism is probably going to be dressed up in a certain way that is going to obfuscate or straight up omit certain aspects of how fascism actually functions.
Yeah, so
And
are
again,
yeah,
I'm using
but
a
left-wingers-
diagnostic definition.
Why shouldn't I do the exact same thing? I'm giving you
You can do whatever you want.
not only a diagnostic definition, I'm giving you the most concise historical definition. It's a historical movement.
You give
It's
me
not
a
just
very
a
narrow
capturing.
definition.
It's not just capture. I gave you such a narrow definition. It's unbelievable. I'll give it to you again. All right.
No, I know it's narrow, that's what
Fascism
I'm
is an
saying.
ideology that proposes corporatist,
Yeah.
pelaginetic, ultranationalist state. That's as narrow as it could possibly be.
I know.
Do you want each of these to? I can
No,
expand on each.
I
of
know your
these.
definition. You talked about like the merging of the head and the body and the state and whatever. Like I know how you define it. I just don't like that definition.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad you
Yeah.
don't like it. We can
and you
just
don't
ignore.
like mine. It's
we
what
can
you've
just
been talking
ignore all
about
his.
for the
We'll
past
just ignore
49 minutes.
Yeah, we'll just ignore all historic context for the thing you call the
Just
guy.
like you ignore all the scholars you don't like by calling them leftist hacks.
Wait. The main one here Paxton, right?
And
I
Stanley.
gave the olive branch. I was like, look, I like this guy's work. I understand he is actually a scholar who's actually focusing on the issue. He is giving you expounded beliefs. He does utilize some of the historic context, right?
And what's wrong
But
with Jason Stanley?
he almost stays completely away from the, who cares? He stays completely away
You
from
care.
the historic. He stays completely away, though, from the historic ideas of corporatism, third positionism, and instead he's trying to use a modern lens in which to gift it to you leftists or some
It's
shit.
not a
He
gift.
stays
I don't know why
completely
you're
away from
framing
a
it
lot
like
of that,
this.
which is why so many people disagree with Paxton. Third positionists,
and Paxton
by
disagrees
the
with
way,
many people.
we have modern third positionists right now who are advocating for their positions. We've got Keith Woods. We've got what was his name? The other one who used to be a big, I can't think of his name. Cultured Thug. He ran a third positionist thing for a long time that gained a lot of steam. There's lots of third positionists actually who we can appeal to tell us what the third position is, right? And what it is that the foundational philosophy is, this and that. All what you're trying to do is use morally ambiguous language in order to call your opposition that thing.
Yeah,
But
I'm
you're
not
not
making
actually
a prescriptive
creating,
claim.
but you're not
descriptive.
Yeah. Well, wait, prescriptive or descriptive?
I'm saying the claim I'm making is descriptive that Donald Trump is a fascist. You could
Yeah,
say,
I'm not
he is, but
making-
fascism is good. That's a
Okay,
different
well,
conversation.
here's the thing. I'm going to make the descriptive claim that fascism is both historic. It's a historic movement, and historic movements deserve historic definitions, and they just deserve to have their historicity brought into play when it comes to you defining them in a modern sense, so that you can understand what this ideology actually is, and that you are completely bereft of that in your definition or even in explaining yourself here.
I don't want you to pivot from the Jason Stanley thing. Like, why do you think that he is like not credible
It's irrelevant and tangential.
No, it's relevant because you are the one who impugned his credibility.
Okay, now he's great. I'll just say he's great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, anything else?
Nope,
So, okay, great. So anyway, it's tangential, it's irrelevant. That was the pivot.
That's
so back to this.
Okay, that's kind of slimy.
When we're talking
You don't
about
have to do
historic, when we're talking about you're the one who made the pivot. When we're talking about
Addressing what you said.
historic historic movements, they have historic definitions. Feminism does. Christianity has historic definitions. All ideology, communism has historical definitions. All of these things have historic definitions which are laid in to what they actually are. For some reason, you want us to believe we should just ignore that for fascism.
I don't want anyone to believe anything. I'm defending my position. If you think I'm wrong, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. If you want to be pedantic about what ultranationalism means and ignore every single point I make, that's your right to do. I am curious, when you conceded to my 3 affirmative claims, was that like a sarcastic, like, okay, liberal, whatever you say? Or was it like an
I'm
actual
pointing
concession?
out that even if I cede all these claims,
But do you cede them?
It wouldn't demonstrate that. Well, let's go through them one at a time.
Sure. You want me to start with number 1? Trump is an authoritarian whose political project seeks to centralize and consolidate power by engaging with our laws in bad faith.
Yeah, I'll cede that claim.
You actually fully agree with me on that?
No, I didn't say I fully agree with you. I just said I'll cede the claim. Whether I agree with you or not is tangential to the debate.
Well, I'm curious. Do you agree with me?
I don't care what you're curious about is tangential to the debate.
Well, it seems pretty relevant.
I don't
to the
care
debate,
what you're.
actually.
No, it's not relevant. If I agree or don't agree, what's relevant
My
is if he is
affirmative
or isn't a
claim as to
fascist.
why Trump is a fascist is not relevant to the debate.
No, wait.
Okay.
That claim is relevant to the debate. Whether I agree with that claim is not.
And you don't want to share with anyone whether or not you agree with that claim.
Why would that have anything to do with this debate?
Because then we could discuss substantively what
Yeah,
Trump
no,
has
you
done.
want to get into policies. Next time, ask for
I want to
policy
get into
debate.
Trump because
We're
if
asking-
you read the
well, right,
description of
what's
the
the
debate,
prompt?
is Trump a fascist?
Yeah,
Now, what is fascism?
And here's the thing. I'm ceding every one of these points, hypothetically, and still demonstrating he's not.
Okay, so you think that even if we use the claim number 1, Trump is an authoritarian whose political project seeks to centralize and consolidate power by engaging with our laws in bad faith.
Yeah, that's not fascistic.
In conjunction with my other 2 claims, is not fascistic?
So we'll start with claim 1. That's not fascistic. So claim 2.
You have to be all 3 together.
Okay, go to claim 2.
This is like pointing at a brick and saying, it's not a house, liberal. You said a house has bricks.
Okay, I'm going to go through them one at a time and tell you if
Yeah.
they're fascistic or not, and then we'll take the totality of them. Go ahead.
Okay. Trump is an authoritarian whose political project seeks to centralize and consolidate power by engaging with our laws in bad faith. He uses this position of power to vilify, intimidate, and oppress his opposition and those he designates as members of outgroups. And he builds, fuels, and justifies this movement with allusions to a once glorious, now desecrated past, which can only be reattained through ultranationalism.
Well, wait a second. can only be attained with ultranationalism.
Reattained, yeah.
Reattained. Okay. So Trump is saying that he wants everybody to be the body of the state.
No, he's saying that we have to put America first to re-achieve American glory.
That just sounds like nationalism to me.
Okay, it sounds like ultranationalism when you look at the actual extent to which he employs this propaganda technique, and when you combine it, when you combine it with the fact that it's not in a vacuum, this rhetoric is used to justify authoritarianism.
Well,
if he was just saying it and then doing
even if the rhetoric
legally,
is
different question.
Hang on, even if the rhetoric is used to justify authoritarianism, that still is not fascism.
According to you, I guess.
No, I mean according to all of the according to all of the history around
how long
what
do you want to do
fascism
this?
is, and not only that, according to your own don't be a snarky little fuck. You took the debate. Suffer. So back to this.
I am.
Back to this.
It's more funny than suffering. I just like
the thing is
talk about
like
Trump at all.
We are talking about if Trump is a fascist.
No, but
what's
things
the
that
debate?
Trump has done, not like.
Yeah, I'm
again,
not here. I'm here to talk about if Trump's a fascist.
I want to clarify with James. The debate prompt is not what is fascism. Is Trump a fascist?
Yeah, that's right. So we're talking about if Trump's a fascist. Anything else?
Yeah.
Just to be sure, do I understand right? So if we were using Andrew's definition, in that case, Andrew, you would say, no, Trump's not a fascist.
Yeah, by Andrew's definition, I would also say Trump's not a fascist. I wouldn't use his definition.
Okay.
Right.
And then
you're just going to use a made-up, non-historical definition.
One that I think is better.
Using Adam's definition, where would you guys both land?
I would still say he's not a fascist because of the ultranationalism. This is the critique.
No. You're not actually using my definition when you say that. You're projecting your own definition of this, like the subparts of the overall definition into my definition. So you keep saying my definition doesn't work because ultranationalism, but in my definition, I've explained what ultranationalism actually means, which is a rhetorical strategy.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean
to justify power grabs.
That's not what ultranationalism is.
If you were to accept that ultranationalism in this context is a justification or a premise used for power grabs, then would Trump be a fascist?
Ultranationalism is not defined by rhetoric. It's defined by action. And by the way, Gentile points this out. His whole philosophy was called pure act. Pure act was his entire philosophy, and fascist philosophy, pure act. It's an action, not a rhetoric. It's not a rhetoric.
Okay, I just want to ask the question. I just want to ask the question again. If you were to accept the way I am using the word ultranationalist,
I don't accept it.
If you were to, it's called a hypothetical. Would Trump then be a fascist?
I can't. Listen. Hypotheticals have to map on to logic, right?
No, I'm just asking if you were to accept the premise, then would it follow that Trump's a fascist?
If it was the case that I decided to accept the premise is Trump, that you say Trump is a fascist, would that make him one? Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Cool. So if you claimed Trump is a fascist and I said, yes, he is, you're right.
Again, James, thanks for having us. I'm glad we
What
were
have we
able to
established there?
figure this out. I don't really know what we established, but you just conceded, I guess, at least
What
in,
are you
in using
talking
my
about?
definition.
If I listen,
You're saying using my definition,
if
Trump
it was
is a
the
fascist.
case that you accepted this, would it be the case that you accepted it? Yes.
Mhm.
If it were the case that I accepted it, then it would indeed be the case that I accepted it.
No,
Good thing
because
I don't accept it.
well, no, you could then say
What are
that
you
even if
talking about?
you could then say that even if I accepted your definition of ultranationalism in this context, your definition still would not qualify to Trump as a fascist because Trump did XYZ or
You
didn't
asked
do
me
XYZ.
if it's the case that you accepted this thing, would it be the case that you accepted this thing?
No.
Yes.
I said if it's the case that you accept my definition of one part
No,
of this thing,
accepted.
I can be even more clear.
That's
said
not
if
what you said.
I can clarify what I said. People can also rewind. I said, if you were to accept the way I am using the term ultranationalism, then yes.
Yes.
But
if I were to, so now we're in hypothetical
if you were to accept
territory.
what?
If I were to accept your framework for this. In this case,
not just
ultranationalism.
framework for this, specifically my definition of ultranationalism in this context. If
Yes.
you were to accept that,
If I were to,
then zooming out, would my overall definition and my affirmative claims of fascism apply to Trump?
I see. So let me show you how stupid this is.
Please.
If you accepted that this lighter was fascist, would this lighter be fascist?
It's not analogous to what I said at all.
Answer my question.
Yes.
If you accept, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, great. Look,
Not analogous.
You just admitted the lighter's fascist.
Oh my God. No, yeah, this is not analogous. Because
It's
I'm
the same thing you're
referring
asking
to
me.
I'm
It's the
referring
same thing
to
you're
a
asking me, bro.
I'm referring to a subcomponent of my overall definition, which you are taking issue with, and saying if you were to accept the definition of that subcomponent and then zoom out, would my overall affirmative claims then justify calling Trump a fascist.
Yeah. So what you're asking me is, if it were the case that you agreed with me, Trump was a fascist, would he
No.
be?
No. So I'm
Yes.
asking. Because you could say, okay, even if you say that, Trump didn't actually do this authoritarian thing, or he doesn't engage in bad faith, he's trying to pursue novel legal theories, he takes legal advice from his lawyers. You could actually dispute on that basis that even if I accept your definition, Trump does not fit this category.
No. Me saying to you, even if it was the case that I accepted what you meant by ultranationalism is true, and therefore agreed with your position, would I be agreeing with your position? Yes, of course, hypothetically, that would be the case.
I'm asking
What's
if you
actually
agreed with my
happening here,
definition,
though,
would Trump meet it?
I don't agree with your definition that Trump meets the criteria for ultranationalism for the 15th time. All you've done is ask me hypothetically, if you did, would he? And the answer is
I feel
yes,
like
of
you
course.
know what I'm saying.
I don't know
and
what
you're pretending
saying.
not to.
I don't, because it makes no sense.
I'm asking if you were to accept the premise, which is how we define fascism, then would you accept the conclusion that Trump meets that definition?
Yeah, you're asking me the same thing. You're just saying, if it's the case that you accepted this, would you be accepting this?
No, but I'm not asking you to accept that Trump's a fascist. I'm asking you to accept my definition of what fascism is.
I don't accept your definition of fascism for the last time, for the 300th time.
Don't. Dude, you
But
know
if
what
you
I'm
say,
saying. You know what I'm saying. Don't do this.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, you do.
I actually don't. Use small words. Pretend I'm really stupid.
Okay. Do you understand that when we are applying labels to people, whether or not that label applies to the person is not just a question of how you define the label, but once you've established that definition, whether or not the person actually fits in line with the description of that label. So you could say, I accept your definition, Adam, but Trump does not meet those affirmative claims that you've made, because Trump actually, for example, legitimately thinks that he has the right to do these things. His lawyers tell him he has the right to do it. He legitimately thinks that James Comey and Letitia James are enemies of the state, and therefore he's not engaging in bad faith. He's not punishing his opponents.
So I understand exactly what you're saying. I just need you to
Okay.
understand that it's a complete tautology. What you're asking me to do is grant this so that we can move to something else. Okay,
No.
I get that. Well, you are. What you're saying is, can you accept that my definition within its framework is coherent if you accept my definition as being coherent?
Just saying, if you accept my definition, would Trump meet it? I don't know why you're overcomplicating.
Yeah, if I accepted, yes, but it's tautological, of course. If I accept your definition of fascism, would the guy you're calling a fascist meet the definition that you've tailored to the guy? Sure.
No, but if I gave the same
But so
definition of
what?
fascism and said, like, is Obama a fascist? You would say, no, by your own definition, Obama does not meet that criteria.
And I'm
right?
telling you that here right now with ultranationalism.
No, but then you're using your definition of ultranationalism.
Yeah, because
not
what's
mine.
going on here is this. Okay, do you understand that if I said fascism is the belief that we should be moving towards a stateless society, right? And you're a communist, let's say, right? Would you accept that as the definition of fascism?
I wouldn't, but you're saying if I did, then
You
what's the-
wouldn't.
yeah.
And but if you did, then you would be agreeing with me, right? If you did.
Not necessarily.
Hang on, no. If you accepted that as my definition,
Give me the definition again.
Yeah, that communism is a movement towards the stateless, or fascism is a movement towards a stateless society.
But then who'd you be applying that definition to? Just give me an example.
Let's just say in this case, Bernie Sanders.
Okay, and then I could say, Andrew, I accept your definition hypothetically, but even by accepting that definition, Bernie Sanders is not moving towards a classless society, therefore he's not a fascist, right?
Okay.
So I could take your premise and entertain it temporarily and see if within that framework, Bernie Sanders would or would not meet it. And you're not doing that with me.
So if I tailor fascism is just men who have brown beards, they're all fascist. That's my definition. Can you tell me how you don't meet the criteria of being a fascist now?
I feel like my beard is more black, but I get your point.
Black.
Yeah, I would say sure.
You would say sure.
Yeah,
okay,
but that's not analogous to what I'm saying.
But
at all.
hang on. So it does apply. My definition's coherent and does apply to you being a fascist because you have a black beard, right?
If that's how we're defining it.
Right. So what all you're saying there, do you understand how this becomes tautological? A fascist is you because you are a fascist. You have a black beard, therefore you're a fascist. Andrew, I accept.
Fascism is when someone has a black beard, and then you asked, is Santa Claus a fascist by that definition? I would say no.
Okay, well then here, let's just do it this way then, right? Anybody who's from Africa is a fascist by my definition. That's what a fascist is. Do you agree?
Cool. I don't agree, but
anybody who has ancestry
let's entertain it.
from Africa, do you accept that as my definition of fascism?
I don't, but if I was to internally just say, okay, let's accept it as a premise for the sake of argument, then who are you calling a fascist by that language?
Does Barack Obama now fit the criteria for fascism by my definition?
You said anyone who's descended from Africa? By that definition, every human being on Earth would.
Okay, but you have to have like, I don't know, 30% DNA or something.
Okay, I don't know Obama's exact racial makeup. I'd assume, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So then what have we established there, though? Would
That
you
by
agree with
your-
me that that's what fascism was? Or
No,
would you reject that definition?
I'd reject that definition.
what would
as
you
you've been
re- and-
rejecting mine?
Yeah, and so you would reject that definition under the premise that, hey, wait a second, that's not what it is. Here's what it actually is, which is what I'm doing to you.
It's how long are we gonna do this, dude? Like,
As
okay,
long as it
let me ask
takes.
you.
As
long
long
as
as
it
it
takes.
fucking takes.
Love that. Love that. Let me ask you a question. I want to see if you still hold this same position. I've seen you say that Trump complied with the Supreme Court to bring back Abrego Garcia and
Yeah, I'm
didn't
not
them.
deviating from any of that. I'll grant all this. It doesn't show how Trump's a fascist.
No, but you're granting it for the sake of argument,
I
right?
can just say that I'm wrong. Yeah, sure.
But you don't
I'll
want to
grant
engage
it.
with the substance.
It's irrelevant to the topic. It's tangential. You're trying to escape
No,
the topic.
it's relevant to my definition of fascism.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
On what?
Whatever it is that you want to say here about.
I'm just trying to
about
clarify
some guy
if-
named Garcia.
I saw you do a debate where someone said, "Oh, Trump didn't comply with the Supreme Court to bring back Garcia," and he was like, "Well, did Garcia get brought back eventually? Checkmate, liberal." So I'm just asking if you still stand by that, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm genuinely asking if you still stand by that or not. That
Who
Trump
gives a shit?
complied,
What the fuck does that have to do with fascism, dude?
because one of the pillars is authoritarianism, and I think engaging with our judicial branch in bad faith and defying or not complying with court orders is probably indicative of authoritarianism.
Yeah, but I can grant that it's authoritarianism, and it still doesn't get us to fascism. That's the problem.
Yeah, not on its own.
That's
is like,
right. So
again,
that's why I'm
I
willing
told
to
you,
see the
Andrew,
argument, because it's
this is-
irrelevant. It's
Yeah, it's
tangential
like-
and fucking irrelevant.
It's like I told you, Andrew, a house is made of bricks and foundation, and it has a door and a ceiling. You're like, is that brick a house still, liberal? I don't think so. It's just like,
If
what are
you
you
were
doing?
to set the criteria for what makes a house, and it has to meet these different qualifications
In
okay.
conjunction.
in conjunction, then sure, I could say that meets the definition, and we agreed that that's what the pillars were for the house, that meets the definition of a house, sure, or that
Yeah.
meets what the ideology of the house is. In this particular case, not what's going on. What's going on here is that I continuously keep granting all of these various things to allow you to tie them together, and we still can't manage to get to fascism because of this whole problem you have with ultra nationalism, which is a key point and
It's a
pillar
problem
of your
that
argument.
you have with ultranationalism.
Ultranationalism is act, not it's got to be. It has to be act. It can't just be rhetoric. It
It's
has
show,
to be
it's
act.
performance.
No, it's act. It's It's
You
pure
can say
act.
that. It can be. It
The
can be.
fascists themselves describe it as pure act. That's the whole philosophy is pure act. It's
Okay.
literally called pure act philosophy, dude.
In what? In the Italian iteration of fascism?
No, in all of it. Okay, so if we were to look at Nazi Germany, is that
Mhm.
ultra nationalist?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not
Why?
super familiar with German history.
Why?
I think there was probably a lot more ideological as well as rhetorical because they had complete subservience to the state there.
But there was an ideology there of
As
like
well.
moving the Third Reich.
But that ideology
1,000 years.
was demonstrated with propaganda and speeches, which were
Yeah,
meant
yeah,
to justify
sure.
the power grabs. It's pretty
Sure,
important
sure.
functional definition.
It's not that you can't utilize propaganda for a fascist state. Only that
Yeah.
you can have a fascist state absent propaganda, and you can't have a fascist state with just propaganda.
Oh,
That's
I
the problem.
disagree. I think propaganda is a key pillar of fascism. It's one of the pillars that Jason Stanley lays out in his book.
Okay, wait a second. Let's see if we can get agreement here.
Okay.
Do you agree that we can have a fascist state without propaganda?
I guess it's potentially possible by the definition I'm using, though. No.
So it's possible and not possible, or it's not
Yeah,
possible.
by like a different definition, because as I opened with saying, the definition of fascism is still disputed by scholars. So I'm
so
sure someone could,
logically,
I'm sure someone could make that case. I would probably not make that
Well,
case.
I'm
though.
asking you. I'm not
Yeah, no,
asking
not
these
according
guys.
to my definition.
So you can't have a fascist state that's not propaganda, that doesn't use propaganda.
No.
So you couldn't have. Okay, what about this? Do you agree with me then that it is the case that fascism is antithetical to democracy?
Substantively, yes, but in terms of like appeal and presentation, probably not necessarily. No. In
So you
fact,
can have democratic fascism.
you can have the sort of like veneer of democracy being used to legitimize the state.
Could you
The
have
same way they'll use
democratic
the veneer of
fascism?
law and order.
Can you have democratic fascism where people
It depends
vote?
on if you're asking me in substance or, I mean, you
In
can have only
substance.
one person on the ballot and then people can vote. But I mean,
Okay, no,
that's why I'm
but I
asking
mean,
for
can you
specifics.
have a democracy in which everybody votes and is still a fascist society?
Yeah.
So you can have democratic fascism.
That's in Robert Paxton's stages. Yes.
So you can have democratic fascism.
It would be an earlier stage of fascism, but yeah.
But that's totally antithetical to what fascism was. Fascism
Take it up
itself,
with Robert Paxton. Dude.
I'm taking it up with you. I'm not arguing with Paxton. I'm arguing with fucking you. So
Okay.
Paxton, when you're talking about democracy and fascism, this is one of the limiting characters of what it is that you're saying that I think you don't even really agree with it. Fascism itself, it has to be autocratic. It has to be in some way autocratic because the corporatism aspect of it, the entirety of the body of the state, the second representation of the fasci, the first representation of the fasci is the autocratic leader. Democracy can't work in these instances because if you had a democracy, you could not have corporatism. That was the whole problem. One of the problems we're solving.
Is autocraticness binary?
Yeah,
like could a system trend towards autocracy, but you'd have to wait till like all hope is lost to call it an autocracy?
You would just no, an autocracy would just be a leadership of one.
Centralizing power with one or like a very few amount of people. I'm asking, like, as that process
no, that
is
would be
undergone,
wouldn't that be a plutocracy if there was multiple people?
Sure, fair. With one person. What I'm asking you is, isn't there a process through which autocracy is achieved? It doesn't just appear in existence, right?
Well, it can be achieved many different ways.
All I'm arguing is that states can do autocratic things and not be 110% autocratic.
Yeah, but what I'm arguing to you is that fascism as an ideology requires actually you to have an autocrat, and you have to have the autocrat or else the body of the state doesn't work correctly. You can't actually have, in fact, I used to clown on leftists on TikTok all the time. They don't understand the third position. I would ask them this question: do you believe that there can be democratic fascism? They would say no. I'd ask why not? Because within the criteria you can have that.
Yeah.
You're seating, you can be democratic fascism.
As Robert Paxton says, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is here is like it's so antithetical to historic fascism. I don't
your
understand.
Perception of it.
To anybody's perception of it. It's ridiculous.
Except a significant portion of fascism scholars, which again, I'm not forcing you to accept what they're saying.
Not a significant portion. There's some fascist scholars you may be able to point to, but you can't point to consensus here by your own admission. So don't do that. So
yeah,
don't do
I'm not
that.
saying there's consensus.
Yeah,
but Robert Paxton is considered the preeminent scholar of fascism.
When I'm thinking of the fascist dystopia in my head,
yes,
am I thinking, states which sometimes take autocratic measures, right? But everybody gets to vote, right? It's helldivers, like it's helldivers. Is it managed democracy, right? The idea here is when I'm looking at the fascist dystopia, am I thinking about what Andrew's saying fascist is, or are we thinking about what you're saying fascist is? Because when I think of fascism, we're thinking about autocracy. We're thinking about the system involved in autocracy. We're thinking about corporatizing. We're thinking about ultranationalism. Everything's moving towards the production of the state. Those are the things which would meet the makeup, I think, of almost everybody who we presented these different worldviews to. Don't you think almost everybody would be like, okay, this guy Andrew is making a good point here about what this fascism thing is? Don't you think so?
Everybody is. It depends on who's watching, but this is like saying that I can't call it cancer in stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 4 or stage 3 or 4 even until the cancer is terminal. We can't call it cancer.
No, we just have to agree on what cancer is before we can get to the stages.
I highly doubt we're going to agree on what fascism is. I mean, and again, the purpose of the debate is not what is fascism. Is Trump a fascist?
Right, but if we can't agree on what fascism is, how are we supposed to agree on if Trump is that?
By saying that by your definition, Andrew, I don't think Trump's a fascist. So then we can discuss if we accept my definition, is Trump a fascist or not? And then you can close the debate by saying, guys, just remember, I don't accept his definition. Or we can just continue going and we're not.
Yeah, but I don't.
Here.
I literally. But here's the thing. I think that most of this key-in problem here is on ultranationalism, honestly. The ultranationalism aspect and the ambiguity there, I feel like you're really banking on the ambiguity of not really committing to what that is. Like if I give you an example.
Said zero sum.
Yeah, that's nice that you say that, but it doesn't tell us much. For instance, Nazi Germany, that's ultranationalist?
Yeah.
Okay. Benito Mussolini, ultranationalist?
Sure, probably.
Okay. When we move over to Franco Spain, ultranationalist?
I think there's actually some dispute as to whether Franco was a fascist or
tons of dispute, but not ultranationalist. Was he an ultranationalist?
I'm not super familiar with Franco, so if you're saying he is, then I'll just grant. I don't really care. Sure.
Okay, most of the Axis power was Japan ultranationalist?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Japan is under an emperor right? And then basically they have a whole different system of government, the Benito Mussolini, who has a whole different system of government than Hitler, who has a whole different system of government than what became Francoist Spain. So the thing is like, what's the denominator here that makes it ultra nationalist? I would argue that what all four of those places had in common was that the people there and the ideology revolved around the people formulating some kind of allegiance to the state, and the state became the priority. All of those had that in common. What they didn't have in common, though, was that it was a zero-sum game. Franco, for instance, he opened up trade to other nations.
Why?
What's that?
Why?
His economy was failing.
So he did it in the service of the nation.
Well, I mean, the justification there would be that, sure.
When I say zero sum, I'm saying that any other country doing well is like a blemish on the nation, right? Because there's a finite amount of greatness. If someone else is winning, that must mean we got ripped off, or we got screwed, or we got embarrassed.
Yeah, but again, I think that you're just kind of alluding to nationalism itself. If it is it the case that a person can hold only nationalist policies, that's it. That's all that they ever do is nationalist policies. But at the same time, they think that everybody else in the world is screwing them over if they're doing better than them. You still have
they could have ultra nationalist policies in isolation and not maybe be a fascist. It could be something else if they're just ultra nationalist.
Yeah, but when we're talking about a nationalist now, can a nationalist hold a zero-sum position and not be an ultra nationalist?
I think that's unclear. I'd say probably not. But there's, like I said, the distinction here is blurry.
But don't you think? Don't you think that the distinction then of saying the one thing all of these fascist nations that you would broadly consider, or at least ultra nationalist nations, did have in common was that the people themselves were instructed through both propaganda, government policy, various things like this. Their allegiance needed to come to the state first, compromising all other values.
Is it your claim, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like fascist states are following their ideology in good faith, and the ideology is what matters and not the accumulation of power and the suppression of outgroups?
I think both matter. So the core tenet of fascism is power. Like it's autocracy. So an accumulation of power is necessary to the ideology. So they're mutually exclusive. You can't have one without the other because it's part of the ideology that they incorporate as much power to themselves as possible in order to institute corporatism. That's the whole point.
Sure. So like an analogy I would use here, which I think might make my definition more intuitive, is that what fascism is trying to achieve is power. Like you said yourself, autocracy. The way it achieves that, it's going to have to appeal to some kind of justification with the public. This is what Stanley calls the pillar of propaganda, where they have to mask unpopular goals with like very popular values and like dramatic imagery that appeals to the masses, even if the underlying policy being justified by that imagery is actually not popular. So sort of zooming out, I would say ultranationalism and the mythic past is the rhetorical fuel and the pretext and the justification that is then used to centralize power and consolidate power. And then once that power has been centralized and consolidated, it is then used to undermine democratic institutions.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And let me see if I can steel man it, just so I can show you that I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
You're saying an accumulation of power is necessary. This accumulation of power is then going to be using ultranationalist propaganda in order to promote what it is that it wants to do, right? Whether it's to outgroups or whatever its ultranationalistic policies are. That's what you're saying, right?
And the initial power grab itself.
Yeah, but here's where the delineation comes in and where we enter into the problematic zone, and why I think I have a way more coherent way to look at this than you do. People try to consolidate power all the time, right? And will do things which appear to be ultranationalistic, even though they're not ultranationalistic at all. You could see this in monarchies, for instance. You can see this in all sorts of different things that have nothing to do with fascism at all.
I agree.
Because it's ideologically based. So a monarchy can follow all of these steps that you're following for fascism and not be fascistic.
How not?
Do you understand? Like, they wouldn't be fascists. They would just be monarchs or autocrats or something like this, but not fascistic. And so the delineation point comes in. What are we gathering the power for? We're gathering the power for this ideological purpose. That's what it's for.
No, Trump is gathering the power to entrench the power and establish the power and remove roadblocks to that power.
It's not just power for the sake of power. It's ideological and power-based, but part of the ideology is power. Like Trump, for instance, in your view, right? I don't even think in your view he's an ideologue. He's more
Definitely
of a
not, no.
He's a demagogue.
He's like, I'd say like a fascist pragmatist, if you want to
Well,
call it that.
well, I mean, he's just a demagogue from your view, right? Like he just does what. Let's here. If I pull up the definition,
He's not
of
ideological.
demagogue,
I mean, he has actually no. Trump does have certain ideological
but they're not
tenets that I think
fascist.
are his ultranationalism of like any country doing well means we're getting ripped off, we're being screwed.
Hang on.
China's raping us, they're laughing at us.
Yeah, a demagogue's a political leader who gains power by appealing to emotions, prejudices, and fears rather than using rational argument. That's where you would more or less put Trump, right? Is it a demagogue?
I wouldn't say exclusively, but that's a good description of him, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he's more of a demagogue. Trump is not particularly ideological. Never has. He never has been.
But he does have some ideologies, and the ones that he does have are not exactly like liberal democratic ideologies. They're pretty authoritarian.
Some
and
of them are. Like a lot of them are. This whole
he definitely has an authoritarian ideology.
Like this whole you pay and you can have citizenship, right? Things like this. That's not ultra nationalist, and that's not ideologically based. Right,
sure,
it's just nationalistic based, maybe.
In terms of policy, it's not ultra nationalist, but he's not running around advertising the gold card thing as like how he's going to make America great again. And actually, he gets a lot of shit from his base on that because his base says he's going to make bought America into great. The propaganda of ultra nationalism.
Yeah, well, how he says that he's going to make America great again is, but he wants to go back to tariffs. But the problem, like in fascist ideology, you have to understand that this is why we're using this specific word, and it's a very important word to use because it summarizes it. Let me pull it up just to make sure that I got it here, so that I'm not saying.
I'm going to grab a water bottle real quick, but I can still hear you.
No problem. 1 second. Let me get down to my definitions here.
If you haven't yet, hit that like button no matter where you're watching, folks. And as you can see at the bottom right of your screen, DebateCon 7, Houston, Texas, Saturday, January 31st. Grab your tickets now. We're expecting it to sell out.
Yeah, so fascism defined. Yeah, so it's the palingenetic. So the idea there, when you can say there's a throwback.
Yeah.
So what? Like every president does a throwback. Basically all of them do a throwback.
I'm not saying anything about so what.
Yeah, hang on. They all do a throwback. Basically, all of them will throw back to like things were better, blah, 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 blah. Otherwise, what are they coming in to do? Even with their progressive ideology, they usually will say things like, let's look at the policies from 20 years ago of this nation and how well they worked and blah, blah, blah.
Progressivism is usually talking about creating like a new future, a better future, and actually rectifying past injustices, right?
Agreed. And here's where we run into the problem of palingenetic. Palingenetic is doing the same thing. What it's doing is it's making an appeal to the past for progressive values going forward. That's why the symbol is always a phoenix rising out of the ashes. That's what the whole point from fascist ideology is. What they're doing is they're making an appeal to the past for something new. Why do you think it was called the Third Reich? Not the First Reich, the Third Reich. They're appealing to the past to bring something new that's not that thing. It's not actually what that thing is. It's brand new.
It's substance.
And it's systemic. It's system-wide, always system-wide. And the thing is like Trump's not trying to do that. His callback to policies, things like tariffs and shit like this, that is not bringing in massive systemic change. Not at a systemic scale. That's insane. And so where you go wrong here,
this is policy, you guys, though, not rhetoric.
When you guys say, yeah, but here's the thing, it's pure act. It's defined by fascist as pure act, not rhetoric. Act.
Okay, I'm not taking the pure fascist definition of their own twisted ideology, which they're obviously going
to
dress
up
by making it seem.
What do those fascists know about what they believe?
Compared to scholars of the term, yeah.
Oh, compared to the people who interpret their words, yeah. I mean, come on, man.
Who spend years of their life reading primary sources?
Yeah. Oh, do you mean the things I'm appealing to?
Yes, but then they look for common denominators between different primary sources and actually do a descriptive analysis. No, you're zeroing in on one or two instances and then taking it at face value.
No, I'm zooming in on all of the instances of fascism.
By your definition.
Oh, well,
which is obviously much more strict.
Give me a country which fits your definition. Let's see if it fits with my definition of fascism better or yours.
I believe Jason Stanley said that Poland had a fascist phase, but then the fascists actually ended up losing to the liberal Democrats. So there have been countries where fascism has started to
what
arise,
about Poland?
But never actually won.
What about Poland? Do you think it was fascist?
I believe there was like an explicit move, and you'd have to check the details on this, towards centralization of government power. And also like illiberal attitudes, right?
That's not fascist.
not in isolation. I mean,
Yeah. So then what made it actually fascist?
You'd have to read his article about it. I don't know.
Well, you said, well, this is the thing. Like I keep on
you asked
bringing
me
up
for an example.
I keep on bringing up actual fascist societies, their
Uh-huh.
actual fascist policies, the
And state
actual
fascist
fascist
societies.
common denominators. You keep on appealing to a scholar's interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's terrible. I want
You're
you to
pretending to
engage
be
with
a
what I'm
scholar.
saying.
I'm not going to
What do
pretend
you
like
mean
I'm a
pretending
scholar.
to be a scholar?
I try to have humility
We're
with
just
defining
doing-
one of
wait,
the most
wait.
contested terms in social science.
We're just
and
doing
you think
appeals
you
to
figured
authority.
it out.
We're just doing appeals to authority.
It's your expertise.
No, it's an appeal to authority. I don't accept this authority as being an authority who's beyond other
You don't
authorities.
have to accept it, Andrew.
I don't. That's a fallacious
Yeah.
form of argumentation. It's called an appeal to authority fallacy.
I'm not saying
You
because
need
he's
to
a
be able to
scholar.
make these arguments without specifically saying it's true because he says so.
Why?
You need to show me how it's true, period, because it's a fallacy. It's fallacious.
relying on
it's a
academics
literal-
in a field to
yes.
define the field as
No.
fallacious?
If it's the case that you say this is true because this academic says it's true, that's fallacious. That's an appeal to authority fallacy. You need to tell me why it's true, why it's actually true, not it's true because he says so.
Hold on. I never claimed a consensus definition of fascism. So you're like strawmanning what I'm even
So
saying.
tell me why what you're saying
I'm
is
saying
true.
that by my definition, which it's clear there's no amount of words I can say to you to justify my definition in your eyes. I'm just saying, what is the point now in going in circles on our definitions?
Well, no. I'm asking for you to give me like good, compelling justification based
I would
on
do that if you
based
let me get
on-
to substance of how Trump behaves, but you don't want to talk about it.
Go ahead. Name anything. I bet you I'll just cede the point and we still won't get
I
any
bet
closer
you
to
will.
how he's
So
a fascist.
There's no point in bringing it up because you don't want to engage with the actual actions of the Trump administration.
Well, we're not
What
here
I
to debate
expected.
the actual actions of the Trump
They'd
administration. We're here to
probably
debate
be
if Trump is
relevant
a
to defining what
fascist.
they are. Trump doesn't
Then
just
use
exist
them.
in a vacuum.
Then
He's a-
use them. Define how that is a much more rigorous understanding of a historic movement, which is what I'm bringing up over and over again. All of the nations inside of this historic movement, all of the examples which they share in unison, you use an appeal to authority fallacy. This is true because he says so. How about you demonstrate the
just 'cause
truth
he
of what
says
you're
so.
saying? Demonstrate that it's true, that that's what fascism is.
You want me to
show me how it's
You want me to
true.
demonstrate an objective definition of the word fascism?
I want you to demonstrate to me why we should believe that what you're saying about fascism
You don't
is
have
true
to.
in comparison
You don't
to
have
mine.
to believe
You don't have
anything,
to.
Andrew.
Don't have to.
There's literally no point in me sitting here for like the next hour and a half or 2 hours and just saying, this is my definition. This is why I think it's good. Well, liberal, I don't think it's good for these reasons. Well, those reasons are interesting, but I still don't think they're sufficient to negate my definition.
Yeah, so you don't.
Okay.
So let me just make sure I got this right. You don't believe that the historicity of fascism should be incorporated into how we define fascism?
Of course it should, but not entirely on face value.
Okay, so which parts shouldn't we use?
The things that vary.
Like?
Ideology can actually vary significantly. Some might be more pragmatic and some might be more ideological. Like, I don't think Trump is really an ideologue. He might have a couple of really strong beliefs he has, but he has no real coherent ideology. Also, like the way in which power is attained and maintained. There can be different specific ways that authoritarianism is consolidated depending on how they engage with the courts.
Okay.
They might try to, for example, with Hitler's Enabling Act, he had it actually signed as legislation, but he had it done under duress where I believe like there were guards standing in the hallways, right?
So we've
it doesn't mean that
established
every instance of
then-
fascism has an Enabling Act.
So
specifically.
we've established then that there has to be some unchanging pillars then.
Yes, I called that the fascist minimum in my opening statement.
Okay, yeah. So we have these unchanging pillars.
Mhm.
And if we compare your unchanging pillars to my historic standard of all fascist nations which have ever existed
Mhm.
that you could ever come up with,
Mhm.
and they all have mine in common, but they don't have yours in common,
Mhm.
then why should we yield to you and not to me here?
Number one, I'm not asking anyone to yield to anyone, but how do they not have in common what I'm saying?
Well, because in this case, the ultranationalism, which is practiced in fascist nations, has nothing to do with the nationalism, which is practiced by Trump. That's one example. All of these people.
You keep inserting your own definition of ultranationalism to like debunk my definition of fascism, which just seems like not fair.
Well, wait a second. I'm giving you a coherent accounting of a historic movement. And so
Okay.
because I'm giving you a coherent, understandable pillars, which are unchanging between all of the existing fascist nations, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm appealing to this guy. That's it. That's all you're doing.
He's not just a guy.
But you are appealing to him as an authority, and his interpretation
some of the
is right.
seminal works, like the 5 stages of fascism. What is fascism by Jason Stanley? Like these are highly respected works in the field.
Yeah. So you agree that he's correct because he's an expert?
No, I prefer his definition because I think it's more useful. And you don't like that definition.
Okay. So what makes it more useful than mine?
It's diagnostic. Your definition basically says we can't call it fascist till it's too late.
No, mine is diagnostic.
Until the military is in the streets, we can't say it's fascism.
Mine is diagnostic as well. It's
okay,
saying that there's
under your definition, what's the earliest phase we could call out something as fascist?
When it becomes, I would start with the pelagenetic.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I would start with the idea. Well, actually, you know what? I wouldn't even start with pelagenetic. I would start with the ideals of corporatism first. I think that that's the most necessary component.
So you think China is like fascist? They have like kind of state capitalism over there?
Not at all.
How are you defining corporatism then? Because I guess these words kind of overlap.
Yeah, I understand that. I wrote this down. Corporatism defined. Corporatism is the political ideology and political system of interest, representation, policymaking, whereby corporate groups such as agricultural, labor, military, business, scientific, and guild associations come together and negotiate contracts or policy, collective bargaining on the basis of the common interests. And now in fascist history, corporatism specifically defined is pointing out that now corporate unions, what they were looking at trade syndicates as unions, those unions now have some sort of collective bargaining power within the state. And so like Mussolini, I think he made 22 of them. He made 22 actual syndicates, which were designed as corporate entities, which could serve as the body of the state and serve the collective interest of those industries for things like price fixing, goods distribution, things like this. China has nothing even close to that, nothing.
Okay, I think this actually highlights an interesting question I've been meaning to ask you. When we're defining fascism, do you think the risk is greater in the definition being over-inclusive or being under-inclusive?
Depends on the context.
In terms of saying that this movement, this politician is fascist, should we be under-inclusive if we have to pick one of those? Because I think defining these things very, very neatly and precisely, as academics have been saying, even academics that agree with you, is very difficult. So I'm asking, if we have to pick between a definition that is over-inclusive and under-inclusive, I would say the over-inclusive definition is better because these things happening in our society represent a threat to like basic pillars of democracy and freedom. And I'd rather nip them in the bud than wait for them to get to their apex.
Well, but that's a double-edged sword. So, and Paxton brings this up all the time too, right? That's why I think it's more accurate. And you probably even agree with me. It's got to be context specific because you also run the risk of, unfortunately, you're going to call guys like me a Nazi and a fascist. I don't know what you believe. I don't think you're a Nazi. Now, hang on. Maybe not you, right? But your side, when Charlie Kirk died, was calling him a Nazi, okay? All over the place. And a fascist. They call him that, too. I see him call ICE fascist. I see him call this person.
Kamala and Biden a fascist. Yeah, people throw the word around loosely.
Yeah. So the thing is like, if you make it, and this was Paxton's whole argument, right? The reason he didn't want to label people as a fascist, it's so over-inclusive that then it becomes the standard fare that everything is fascist, even things which clearly aren't. And in this case, I'm saying, I think we can meet in the middle. I think that it doesn't have to be so over-inclusive as to be absurd, which I think your definition is, or so under-inclusive that we can't point out what the systems are, which is what my definition does. So I think we can have a happy medium here.
The thing is, like, you're saying it's over-inclusive, but like authoritarianism isn't like something that we can just shrug off as like,
authoritarianism isn't fascism. Then bitch about authoritarianism and stop bitching about fascism.
It's a pillar of the 3 pillars I gave you. I don't know.
But it's also a pillar of monarchy. It's a pillar of autocracy.
And as I said in my opening statement, there's a lot of overlap between fascism and other flavors of authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism is a flavor of basically every ideology I can think of, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't even think of one. So it's like, then it's talk
would be about like liberal democracy or authoritarianism.
Oh,
like a system that is built off of negative rights.
Comparative to the Articles of Confederation, right? Yeah. Wouldn't you consider the Constitution to be highly oppressive?
It centralizes more power in the federal government.
Yeah, it's highly oppressive in comparison.
Oppressive, I don't know. I mean, depends.
Well, it's highly authoritarian in comparison to the Articles of Confederation.
I guess relative to it, sure.
Relative to it, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. Everything we're talking about here, that
Yeah.
within the confines of your ideology,
Wait,
is
and what
relative
you're
to-
bringing up has been at like the centerpiece of debate in American politics, which is how much power should the federal government have. So that is actually something
Which is
very relevant to call out and talk
that's,
about.
And that's fine.
right?
Talking
And
about
I brought it up in my opening statement.
talking about authoritarianism
when the
is fine.
feds when the feds are blocking off local police for investigating a crime scene, then
That's
I actually
fine.
agree that that's pretty authoritarian.
You can
yeah.
talk about authoritarianism. I'm nobody's saying you couldn't, can't, or shouldn't, right? I talked about it all
question.
the time.
Honest
hang on,
question.
stop, bro. I talked about it all the time during
Okay.
COVID-19. The authoritarians who wanted us to wear our state masks
Yes,
and
you will own nothing and be free
and get our
nice
little vaccine passports, right? Okay, so
you still have your vaccine passport?
Authoritarianism, right? You sure bitch about it, have fun with it. But the problem is that that's not what you're doing. You're using loaded moral language to call people the most horrible things in history so that they can then adopt all of that fucking moral baggage. And that's what you're fucking doing.
Do you think that when I call someone a fascist, I'm calling for violence against them?
Why? I don't understand. You wouldn't stop Hitler?
Of course I would. But I'm saying, let me clarify.
Well, then hang on, that's really silly.
That me calling someone fascist necessitates violence against them?
No, but I think it creates.
Okay.
Hang on. By itself, no.
Okay.
However, let me ask you this. Do you believe that if I got up every single day and demonized LGBTQ communities, that I would be creating stigma which would lead to violence against LGBTQ communities?
It depends on what you were saying, but it's very possible, yeah.
Is it likely?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, so would it not then entail that it's equally likely that if you get up every single day and stigmatize your opposition as being fascist, that would more likely lead to violence against those people?
Yeah, but you're talking about what did you?
Hang on. I just want a yes or no there.
They're not analogous, though.
Yeah, can you answer my question?
Why would I answer a question I don't agree with the premise of?
My premise is if you create stigmatization towards an out group, does that usually increase violence towards that out group?
It really depends on what the stigma is.
Usually.
I don't know that I can say one word. It definitely increases the likelihood of violence, but if it's from 5% to 15% or from 5% to 90%,
then it's just
that's
acceptable.
a different question.
So it's just acceptable to increase it by 5%? That's just acceptable.
Do you want us to sacrifice language to compensate for the actions of other people I have no control over?
I'm just pointing out to you that if it's the case that you don't want there to be a stigmatization towards an out group, right? Because you think it's going to necessitate violence. I'm making the same argument backwards to you. I think the reason you should be more precise with what a fascist is, if you want to call them authoritarians and stuff like that, fine, have that argument. But that doesn't have the same loaded language, which then adopts the Holocaust, right? It doesn't adopt the Holocaust. That's what calling people fascist does.
I just want to test your consistency here. So do you think that Trump is significantly increasing the threat of violence against people like Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin when he calls for their hanging, or when he calls Jack Smith a deranged animal, or when he says that Rob Reiner was killed because he had TDS?
Do you realize? Okay, here, I'll just answer this. Let's say yes.
Okay, cool.
So then in turn, that would mean that your rhetoric is increasing the likelihood of violence back the other way, right?
My rhetoric is way less inflammatory than anything I just gave you.
But it would be increasing the threat of violence the other way, right?
From 1% to 2%, sure.
Okay, so it's just a threshold. It's not okay to increase
the question
by 15%,
is the degree.
But it's 3%.
The question is the degree.
What's the threshold that's okay?
Threshold that's okay for what? To call someone a fascist?
No. To increase this through stigmatization, violence against an outgroup.
I'm not going to necessarily be choosing my language in accordance with what other people are going to do because.
And neither is Trump. You're saying that there's a threshold.
No, you're saying that increases the threat of violence.
You're saying you're saying there's a threshold which is acceptable and a threshold that isn't. Okay,
it's not about acceptable or unacceptable.
Okay, well then
it's a question of do we have to refrain from using certain language that we think is accurate just to abstain? Because, for example, when Trump says those things,
bitching about what Trump says.
When Trump says those things, he knows he's lying. That's the difference.
Oh, now you're a soothsayer and you can tell when people are lying or not.
When Trump calls Jack Smith a deranged animal, he knows he's lying. I can prove it to you.
Okay, prove it.
Okay, so when we look at the classified documents case, which Jack Smith prosecuted him on, we have a recording of Trump saying, and I'm going to quote here, "See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret." And then publicly he said, after he was indicted for the same thing, "And by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them." Same thing with the election indictment from Jack Smith. Where
What does that
Trump
have to do with him
knows-
thinking he's a deranged animal?
Trump knows he broke the law, and he's being indicted for breaking the law.
That
and he's saying
doesn't
that
mean
Jack Smith is
he
a deranged
doesn't-
animal for
that-
indicting him.
That doesn't mean he doesn't think he's a deranged animal.
For
Do you
indicting him?
understand?
Hold on. I just want to be
Yes.
clear. Your argument here is that Trump knows he committed a crime and he knows Smith's prosecution of him is legitimate, but then he just still thinks that Smith is a deranged
I'm
animal.
granting
and
that
it's not a
even-
rhetorical device.
I'm
used
granting
to
that even if
raise
it's the
attention.
case, I'm granting that even if it's the case that Trump knew this, I'm not even saying
did.
that this, I'm not even saying it's true. I'm just granting it.
He did.
Okay. But Trump knows this. He allows it. All things equal, right? That still doesn't mean he doesn't think the guy's a deranged animal. Lies require intent.
Let me give you another example of
No,
this.
no, no.
then.
Let's stop.
Okay.
Do you agree? Lies require intent.
No, I think you're like really splitting
Do
hairs
you
here in a
agree
way that
that
makes no
lies
sense.
require intent?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then it is possible then that Trump does think the guy's a deranged animal, right?
He says that in the context of saying his prosecutions were illegitimate, though.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't think that his prosecutions are illegitimate.
No, he knows that he committed a crime.
Even if he did, it doesn't mean he doesn't think the prosecution's illegitimate. This is the problem with your guys' philosophy. It's terrible.
You think that what I'm saying is terrible, and you're not
Yeah.
twisting yourself into a pretzel to make
Not at all.
excuses for Trump right
I'm
now.
not making excuse. I'm looking at your logic chain. The
Yeah,
logic chain
and
is it requires
you're-
intent.
You're
You
missing
say-
very reasonable assumptions that are demonstrated
okay,
time
but
and
hang
time
on,
and
hang on,
time
hang on,
again.
hang on. There you go. Assumptions.
Inferences, I'd say, actually,
Okay, even better. Inferences. But
based
you
on
can't-
a lot of evidence, not just this.
But you can't demonstrate it's a lie unless you can demonstrate the intent. You can only make the inference. And I'm just following your logical chain, not making a claim to the true or false nature of whether or not it is the case that Trump did A, B, or C. It's irrelevant to the philosophy.
Sure. So I suppose it's hypothetically possible that Trump knows he committed a crime, and it's in his political it's in like against his political interests for that crime to be prosecuted and publicized, but he still thinks that the prosecution is illegitimate and that Jack Smith is a deranged animal.
Exactly.
I guess that is possible, Andrew. Sure.
Yeah.
The reason I would dispute that, though, is because this is not
I
a
don't care.
one-off.
I don't care why you would dispute it.
Well, I
I'm
have
just,
evidence for
I'm
it,
just
right?
explaining.
Do
I'm just
you think it
explaining-
makes? Do you
Yeah,
think
look,
it makes
you can
sense
have
to make
evidence and
inferences
say-
based on? Hold on.
You can say I have reasonable doubt that Trump is lying. But
I just
you
want to
don't.
clarify.
You used a declarative statement.
I just want to clarify. Do you think when you have repeated instances of a pattern, we can start making assumptions about the underlying thought process versus if there were just one instance of it?
I think
So,
that I think we can only do that.
So, like, for example, when Trump admitted privately after losing the election, it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you still have to fight like hell. When he told Mike Pence, "You're too honest," when he called Sidney Powell's election
Bro, this
fraud
has
claims.
nothing.
Let me
Hang
just
on, hang on,
finish.
hang on, hang on.
Let me just no. Let me just finish. I let you finish
Okay,
your
I
rants
don't
as
care
well.
about your Trump TDS. We're
You
talking
don't have to
about
care about it.
fascism
You don't have to
here.
care about it.
Oh my
When
God,
Trump
this
privately
guy's
called Sidney
totally
Powell's
delineating
election
from
fraud.
the debate.
Nope.
Yeah.
Trump privately called Sidney Powell's election fraud
does it
claims
have to do with
crazy
fascism?
and linked them to Star Trek.
What
and
does
then
it have to do with fascism?
It has to do with the point we were just on. After
Which is what?
making clear multiple times that he knew he lost the election, Donald Trump posted.
What does that have to do with fascism?
Pro tip: if you want to know what I'm saying, maybe let me finish saying it.
You're
When
not gonna
Trump
ever tie this to
acknowledges,
fascism.
when Trump acknowledges in private that he lost the election, and then says publicly, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. That is him using something to justify the termination of the Constitution, which he has admitted multiple times he knows is not true. Does that make sense?
What does that have to do with fascism?
It's an example of authoritarianism, which is one of the pillars of fascism.
different words. They're different words. Authoritarianism doesn't mean fascism.
It's a pillar of fascism. Brick doesn't mean house, but houses are made of bricks.
Okay, gotcha. Hang on. So when we're talking about authoritarianism, I concede, like I did, that Trump's doing authoritarian stuff that you
Do
don't
you actually
like, and that's
think
not fascism.
He's an authoritarian?
What does that have to do with anything?
Why are you hiding your position on that?
Who cares? Because it's irrelevant to the debate.
Doesn't mean you have to hide your position on it.
Bro, is it relevant to the debate?
I think it's very relevant to the debate, yes.
Explain how.
Because it would be an example of Trump engaging in authoritarianism, which is going to satisfy one
Why
of my
would
three
it
pillars.
matter if it's the case that I believed that?
I'm not saying it matters. I'm just genuinely asking you to
Great.
explain.
Then, so it has nothing to do with the debate. Stay on topic.
It does have to do with the debate in
It
regards to
has
satisfying the pillars
nothing
of my
to do
definition
with
of
my
fascism.
position on if Trump is X or Y or Z.
Yeah, because your position can be whatever you want it to be. Bananas and humans are the same. That's all fine. I'm talking about something which satisfies one of my three pillars of fascism, right?
Well, I concede that. I can
For the
cede
sake
it.
of argument or actually?
Yeah, I don't need to cede it actually. What does that part have to do with the debate? What?
You actually saying things with your chest and not hiding from what you
So
believe?
nothing. So nothing has nothing to do with it, right?
Okay, if you want to be cowardly about it, you don't have to talk about it.
So it
That's
has
fine.
nothing. It
That's
has
fine.
nothing. It has nothing to do with it.
That's
It's
fine,
just red
Andrew.
herrings.
You have nothing to do with anything. It's the same as
It's just
as
red
much-
herrings.
it has as much to do with this as your banana did, Andrew. Sure.
Yeah, it's just red herrings, right?
Of course, yeah.
What does it have to do with the debate, whether I believe it or not?
It has to do with satisfying my three pillars of fascism.
And I concede that we could even grant authoritarianism, right? And it still doesn't satisfy even your own definition of fascism.
No, it doesn't satisfy you inserting your definition into my definition.
Well, we are still on ultranationalism, and I give you tons of examples of what it is, and you just say, well, it's ambiguous.
It's just a category error. You're saying ultranationalism is like an ideology instead of behaviors. I'm saying it's a marketing technique almost for politics.
No, it's pure act. Ultranationalism.
By the way,
it
can be both. But in the context of what I'm saying here, I'm not using it as an ideology or a behavior. I'm using it as a rhetorical technique used to justify power.
Can you name an ultranationalist nation that's ultranationalist on rhetoric alone?
On rhetoric alone? China is probably an example. They do a lot of trade with other countries as well.
They're not. How would they? They're not. They don't.
Well, I'd say they're
zero
nationalists.
sum.
They're
nationalists.
nationalists. They're nationalists and ultra-nationalists. Yeah.
Yeah, they're nationalists, not ultra-nationalists. So again, can you
wait,
name an?
to
Hang on, stop.
I'm just clarifying your question.
Stop, bro. Can you name an ultra-nationalist nation which is ultra-nationalist on rhetoric alone?
An ultra-national, the United States currently.
The United States is ultra-nationalist on rhetoric alone.
The head of state, yeah.
But not actually.
He's nationalist, actually, not ultra-nationalist.
Yeah. So he's a nationalist, not an ultra-nationalist.
His governing style is nationalist, and his propaganda and rhetoric is ultra-nationalist.
Yeah.
I feel like you definitely understand what I'm saying. You can
So
pretend like,
he's-
oh yeah, liberal, I caught you, but
Yeah, so he's a nationalist, not an ultra-nationalist. Got it. And
he
you're
governs
saying,
as a
what you're
nationalist,
saying-
and politics as an ultra-nationalist.
What you're saying is
Is that hard to
the
understand?
United States is ultra-nationalist on rhetoric alone.
The United States government uses ultra-nationalist rhetoric to justify its power grabs, and their actual governance is more akin to nationalism. Does that make sense?
So then how it actually acts is not in an ultra-nationalist way.
The United States currently, no.
Yeah. But so
I think there are aspects of it, but I wouldn't say we fully
So
crossed the threshold.
purely, the nation of the United States, in your view, is an ultra-nationalist nation because
In rhetoric.
politicians use rhetoric.
No, you asked if it was an ultra-nationalist nation in rhetoric alone. And yes, in rhetoric alone, it is ultra-nationalist.
If it's Mexico, ultra-nationalist?
I'm not familiar with Mexican politics. I don't know.
Canada?
Also not super familiar. I doubt Canada is.
Yeah, maybe not Canada. They're like, what about the UK? Are they ultra-nationalist on rhetoric alone?
Probably not. They're like big fans of like multilateralism and NATO and like internationalisalism, which is
I mean, so is the United
internationalism
States.
is probably mutually exclusive
I
with
mean, the United States is pro all those things too.
under Donald Trump.
Yeah, even under Donald Trump.
How?
What do you mean?
He's been like threatening NATO and tariffing our allies since he came in. How is that multilateralism?
Yeah, but he's not fucking. He's worked within the confines of NATO before. In fact, one of the things that Trump did that was pretty good is he
got them to pay their fair share. I know.
Yeah, he made them increase their contribution. And the thing is like that was a good thing. Yeah, right. And that was, by the way, that's unilateral. You might think that that's ultra-nationalist on rhetoric, but it was like, wasn't it that rhetoric that actually made them do that?
I don't honestly buy you think Trump is like an internationalist in his foreign policy.
I think he's barely nationalist, barely.
But do you think he's an internationalist and he's a big fan of like the UN and all these treaties and all these deals, multilateralism globally,
Like
Paris Climate Accord?
Well, when you say internationalism or globalism, what's the distinction?
I'd have to think about that some more. I haven't used the word globalism here, so there might be a lot of overlap there, but it depends on the context you're using it in.
Okay, what about internationalist, meaning?
When I say internationalist, I'm talking about the orientation in foreign policy towards cooperation and creating collectives between different countries to find common agreement and set some kind of standards for trade and international law that are mutually beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, then I would say he's an internationalist, sure.
How?
Because his administration does just that.
Like
They
if we
negotiate
have
trade deals.
allies and then we start antagonizing those allies, isn't that moving away from internationalism?
But wait a second, those are two different claims. So let's separate the claims. Is Trump an internationalist? What does internationalism mean? It means that you're negotiating with other countries for trade and things like this. Then yes, he's definitely doing that. Now,
That's not my definition.
if the second claim is it the case that he may be restricting some of that internationalism? Then I can agree to both of those things. Sure.
Are you talking about in rhetoric or in governance?
Governance.
Okay, well, just to clarify again, I said he was ultra-nationalist in rhetoric. In governance, he's nationalist, not ultra-nationalist.
Yeah.
And I think the extent to which he has shifted away from multilateralism doesn't land us all the way in ultra-nationalism, but it does land us in nationalism when he is tariffing things like Canadian steel.
I agree.
And
I agree he's a
Mexican drywall,
nationalist, just barely a
who
nationalist.
justifies his power with ultra-nationalist rhetoric.
That not so sure about. Like, for instance, again, the gold card, the Trump gold card.
Yeah.
How's that ultra nationalist?
It's not.
It's
And
not.
He doesn't run around campaigning on it because his supporters hate it. They also hate the H-1B visa.
Yeah,
stuff.
maybe, but the thing is like
That actually proves my point. That
Hang
his
on, there
rhetoric
was-
has created a movement that hates the actual policy.
There was rhetoric that Trump utilized saying that he was going to say, you know, if you want to come into the country, it's going to be $1.5 million. He did campaign with that. That is in fact
Hold on,
true.
that's
He did.
not. That is pretty nationalist rhetoric. That's saying I'm putting up a very high barrier to let people in.
No, that's not nationalist rhetoric. Nationalist rhetoric would be the people who are here already. They get the priority over everybody else, right? That's our nation first. That's what we're talking about here. So, you know, in this case, this other foreign national being able to buy dual citizenry would be the opposite of nationalism.
Wait, what is the purpose, though, of him saying we're going to increase the fee to come to the United States? He's appealing to his ultra-nationalist base by saying we are not going to let people come in unless
He's appealing
they pay
to his
us.
nationalist base. Ultra-nationalists would hate that.
I don't, not necessarily, no.
Well, you literally what you just got done saying. You just got done saying his base hates this policy. They're ultra-nationalists. So therefore, sir, ultra-nationalists would hate that policy. You just contradicted yourself again.
Say it again.
You just got done saying
Yes.
his base hated the policy because they're ultra-nationalists.
Mhm.
And then you just contradicted that very same fucking statement 5 seconds later. So which is true? It
Hold
can't
on,
be P and
because-
not P.
Again, are you talking about rhetoric or governance here? You keep like conflating the two to
No,
create
in
confusion.
this case, we already determined this is a governance policy.
And governance has nothing to do with any of my claims about
And even on the
ultra-nationalism.
rhetoric, it's contradictory. Because even on the
How?
rhetoric, if rhetorically his base is ultra nationalist, but they hate the policy, he's promoting the policy, right? Which he did. Then
Which specific?
how
Are you
the
talking
fuck
about
would
the
that
gold card?
rhetorically? How
Wait,
would
are
that
you talking?
rhetorically?
Are you talking about the gold card or him charging like foreign
No, I'm
students
talking about
or-
him saying that he was going to charge people millions of dollars to get citizenship in his first election cycle. He talked about this multiple times.
The gold card? Is that what you're
Not the
referring to?
gold, not just the gold card. I'm talking about his first time running. He made mention multiple times about having foreign nationals pay millions of dollars to become an American citizen.
To clarify, the first time that Trump ran for president, I don't think that he was actually exhibiting anything above like stage 1 or 2 fascism. I think a better description there would be probably like populist, illiberal populist. So I think the rhetoric, if you juxtapose between the 2016 campaign of Trump and especially the 2024 campaign of Trump, where the whole theme is I am your retribution,
wait.
we're going to bring back the golden age, we're going to lock all these thugs and criminals up. Those are very different allusions and very different pieces of imagery.
They're pure sophistry. So what in the second term?
How's it sophistry?
What in the second
rhetoric.
term is the only thing in the second term that gets him to this is just J6? Is that it?
J6 was his first term.
No, but in his second term governing,
Yeah.
is it just J6 that now makes the delineation
Delineation of what in his
of
government?
now he's like a stage 4 fascist?
Yeah, it has to do with how he's using power.
Okay, what is the delineation of how he's using power now versus his first term?
He's indicting political opponents. He's openly defying court orders and saying he wants to defy court orders. He is desecrating rule of law by not prosecuting federal crimes of people who are allies of his. He is consistently lying to Congress, violating Congress's laws.
Didn't he do all of
misappropriating
that in
congressional
his
funds.
first term?
No, nothing near what he's doing now.
Well, wait a second. We're back to scale here. There's no threshold delineation. You're not saying all you're saying is that they just got to meet the requirement. Which of those requirements didn't he meet in the first term? Well, in order to be a stage 4 fascist, what's the requirement?
He has to be governing in conjunction with elites in his party and trying to basically push the envelope as much as possible in terms of fascism without fully letting the mask slip, because that's where Paxton says stage 5, either the elites can end up winning and it becomes standard authoritarianism, or the fascist leader is going to win.
And is that what he's doing right now in your estimation?
I think we're currently in stage 4.
Okay. What in the first term, right? How did he not do that? He was still, from your view, well, like, weren't you guys impeaching him and shit because you were accusing him of doing the exact same things?
For the Ukraine phone call for the Biden thing?
Sure.
Yeah, again, I'm just giving you examples in a second term that are way more flagrant. There's a more consistent pattern over time. So you can isolate things and try to look at them in a vacuum. But if you look at it
sounds like he's just doing the same shit that he was doing that you hated him for before.
No, he didn't do a lot of this shit in his first term.
What things?
He didn't defy the Supreme Court.
In his first term?
Yeah.
Okay, which defiance are we talking about?
The Kilmar Abrego Garcia return.
Oh, back to that.
I tried asking you about this earlier.
All right, gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you this: would he have? Do you think he would have in his first term?
Mm-hmm. I think probably, yeah, because his administration was filled a lot more with sort of establishment Republicans and traditional civil servants.
I see.
Now it's filled with crazy loyalists.
So he was always a fascist.
I mean, stage 2 fascism would still be fascism, sure.
Yeah, so he was just always a fascist, and he was waiting for
his movement was always a fascist movement. Yeah,
I see. I got it now. All right. Cool. So backing up, let's just look at the totality here.
Yeah.
The totality is that Trump's a nationalist, not an ultranationalist. Okay.
In his governance, not his rhetoric.
Yeah, and the United States is currently a rhetorically fascist nation. Is that right?
Yeah, it uses fascist propaganda, fascist imagery to justify power. I mean, you can boil it down to just rhetoric, but rhetoric serves a very instrumental purpose in politics. I'm sure you'd agree.
And you think that is a more powerful way to describe the historicity of a movement which essentially led and contributed to the massive reconstruction of nations post World War II, that you're rhetorically a fascist. Let me ask, do you think that has no loaded moral baggage? There's no
fascist or ultranationalist?
Well, actually both.
Fascist probably has a lot more baggage than ultranationalist does. Yeah, but that baggage is also going to vary. I've debated people who say it's based that he's a fascist.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that when a person is calling another person a fascist, they ever mean you're a rhetorical fascist? Ever?
I'm not saying fascism overall is just rhetoric. I'm saying ultranationalism in my definition of fascism is rhetorical.
Yeah, but when you call Trump a fascist, you mean that in the United States, if they say the United States is fascist, do you think that they ever mean the United States is rhetorically fascist? Ever?
Who's they?
Anybody who says this.
It depends on who you're talking to. I think that probably people like Jason Stanley would agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the common person,
authority or something.
The common person. If you walk over to the common person and you're like, is the United States a fascist nation? Do you think any of them are going to be like, it's rhetorically,
just to be clear,
it's rhetorically
maybe
fascist?
We'll find a little piece of agreement here. I think the vast majority of people that use the word fascism have no idea what they're talking about. They don't even know what the different theories are.
I definitely agree with this.
Because I'm at least referencing a school of thought, and most people don't even know that there are schools of thought in this, and they don't know what they are. So
yeah, but I do. And so then the thing is what's confusing to me here is you keep on saying that your definition has more use than mine.
Diagnostically,
and yet if you were to ask a common person which view of fascism they're talking about when they're talking about fascism, they're definitely going to defer to mine. Nobody's going to be talking about rhetorical fascism, dude.
People on the right might defer to yours, but I think if we both laid out our definitions...
everybody's going to defer to mine, dude.
If we both laid out our definitions, I think you'd probably agree that left-wing people would agree with my definition.
No, I don't think so. I think if I were to go over to any random Democrat, just a random one, who says, I voted for Biden, and any random Republican is like, I voted for Trump. And I was like, here's our different definitions. This guy thinks we're in a rhetorical fascist nation. And I believe,
you don't have to straw man me.
You do believe we're in a rhetorically fascist nation.
Rhetorically ultranationalist and ultranationalist rhetoric.
No, you said rhetorically fascist too, right? Don't you?
That's not my overall argument. The United States government is fascistic. One of the pillars is rhetoric.
Gotcha. Okay. He thinks we're in a rhetorically ultra-nationalist state, right? In stage 4 fascism, based on the fact that he thinks that there's too much authoritarianism, and he believes that we're ultra-nationalist rhetorically. That's what he believes. Rhetorically, we're ultra-nationalist, which I think is just pure equivocation.
That'd be a pretty uncharitable and weird way to frame my definition, but I suppose you could say that.
But it is. You think that Trump's a nationalist. He just uses ultra-nationalist rhetoric.
To be clear, I break it up into 3 categories for a reason. 1 is the fuel and the pretext used for the power grab. 2 is the actual power grab and the consolidation of power. And 3 is how that power is entrenched and used against enemies. Those are all very distinct categorically as well.
Yeah, but the problem is like
and some are more government focused.
Yeah, but those pillars revolve around ultranationalism, and your belief is that
not just ultranationalism. You've zeroed in on that.
That's
but also
the pillar.
Appeal to a mythic past.
But the pillar without ultranationalism doesn't work.
Without
all the other things,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, but all those other things work in context with almost everything else, absent ultranationalism.
Ultranationalism is a big part of the context.
It's like 80% doing 80% of the lifting or something. It's doing a lot of the lifting.
At most, you could say it's doing 33.333% of the lifting, because this is talking about the justification fascists use to obtain and use power. It's not talking about their tactics in using power and how they actually obtain and consolidate power. Those are different questions.
Wait a second. I would say, if I was talking to a person, fascism is a historic movement which utilizes these key categorizations in the fascist states. I can point out, here was the policies, the philosophy, the government type. That's what you want to watch out for when it comes to fascism. And then you give your definition and say, the thing that qualifies mine is that right now he's using rhetoric, which is ultranationalist, but he's just a nationalist. You don't think that, but that is what you're saying, though.
I would say he uses appeals to a mythical past and ultranationalism to manufacture consent for the consolidation of governmental power, which he then weaponizes against his enemies and uses it to entrench the power further.
Yeah, but I would just counter with, so do all politicians. They're always talking about some
all politicians are authoritarian?
Yeah, they're always, kind of. A lot of them want to. Well, every president has basically attempted to entrench the executive branch a little bit more. Almost all of them.
2 minutes before we go into the Q&A.
Sure. Which other politician has defied a court on purpose?
Well, this would be going back to the
Andrew Jackson, maybe.
This would be going back to in that particular case, if I remember right, just off the top of my head, he was trying to do some kind of movement with Indians, and the court said no. He went ahead and executed it anyway. But all the way back to the very beginning, the founders were contrary to their own beliefs. I mean, starting with the Whiskey Rebellion. So, and by the way, we can look at other things too, like Kent State, for instance. What happened at Kent State? Various things like this. And we can say, okay, that's authoritarianism.
Well, there have certainly been flashes of authoritarianism in American history.
But we can also say that
during wartime.
But we've also said
the Japanese internment camps.
Yeah, but we can also say there's authoritarianism which has been pretty good, that we appreciate. You know what I mean? It's like sure. Like, for instance, when we stopped segregation at schools and the National Guard was deployed, so that the schools that didn't want there to be desegregation had to desegregate. That's good authoritarianism, right?
I don't know that I'd call that authoritarianism.
They federalized the state National Guard.
But a big part of my authoritarian pillar includes the words bad
faith.
They
federalized the National Guard against the will of the governor. It was
an expansion of power. Authoritarianism, I'm including bad faith in that, right?
That doesn't fucking mean anything. What does that mean?
Bad faith?
Yeah, what does it mean?
Like, do you agree that someone can engage with...
Don't ask me a question, answer mine. What does that mean?
Okay, I'm asking the audience then. Does everyone agree that someone can engage with laws and institutions that they don't like in good faith to reform them for the better? And someone could also engage with those same laws and institutions in bad faith to delegitimize them and entrench their own personal power.
That doesn't tell us what bad faith means here.
Oh, intentionally lying.
That's all bad faith means?
In this context, sure. Do you want, like, the etymology of the word bad faith?
Kind of.
Okay, we have, 1 minute left for
but I mean, the thing is here is, the whole idea is that you have to engage in the laws in good faith, but then we're just back to intention. If it's your intention,
And
then
we
you're
have
not
demonstrated
lying.
intent from Donald Trump time and time and
Well,
time
no,
again.
it's not a demonstration of intent. You'd have to know the intent in order to, or at least make such strong inferences as to have no doubt.
I think these are the obvious
But we're
inferences.
talking
I
about
think you'd have to
historic-
justify why you
but
don't
hang on,
make
we're
those
talking about the
inferences.
historic movements here. Like
Andrew,
hang on.
The burden is on you here.
Yeah, and I'm giving you the burden. When we're talking about authoritarianism, right? I would say that it's definitely an authoritarian act and was at the time, and it was very controversial, and it was cited as being authoritarian, that when there was desegregation, that the governor was against the federalization of his National Guard.
Is this
and
when
that was
LBJ
done-
sent them?
Yeah, and this was done anyway.
I would say autocracy might be a better word. There was autocratic, but authoritarianism, again, at least how I'm using it here, implies intent. And the burden there is on you because I have given you so many examples of Trump knowing he's breaking the law, but then when he speaks about it publicly, he's basically using it to weaponize.
Yeah, but this isn't. But here we're talking.
Can you explain why that doesn't
Yeah.
prove he's lying?
Because what we're doing right. Well, you want me to prove a negative?
You're saying that just because Trump admits constantly behind the scenes that he's a criminal, but
How
then
can
he
I
publicly
prove? How can I prove a negative though?
I can
That's weird.
clarify. I can clarify what I'm asking you, and then you can critique it if you'd like. I'm asking you if we have multiple instances of Trump saying in private, basically, I know I'm breaking the law, I want to break the law, and then publicly he says, anyone who accuses me of breaking the law is an enemy of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we not assume that he's lying there for political
Whoa,
gain?
wait. I'm not saying you can't make these inferences.
Why is that
What
not
I'm
the most
saying-
reasonable inference? I guess.
Well, here's the thing, right? When you have something which is contested, if I say Adam's a fucking liar, right? I'm very cautious about saying that.
Yeah.
Because while I think that you might be saying things which are untrue,
Mhm.
right? That doesn't mean I think you believe that they're untrue. In the example of
True.
Trump has been very consistent, especially post
Trump
J6.
knows they're untrue.
He's been very consistent, especially post J6, about things like he still thinks the election was stolen from him.
No, he doesn't. He just says that in public.
You know, the thing is, though, right, is like,
We have quotes of him admitting it
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
yeah, to who?
Sidney, his White House chief
Is it
of
fucking
staff.
recorded? Is it fucking, do you got an audio recording, fucker?
We do for the classified documents case, actually. He says, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret.
From
And
Sidney
the broader-
Powell?
the
So
broader-
from Sidney Powell, no.
Sidney Powell was the January 6th case. You're asking for a recording. We actually do have a recording
Let's
in
hear
the
it.
classified documents
Yeah,
case.
let's hear it.
Awesome.
Pull it up.
James, can I play that real quick, James, before you switch to the
Yeah,
Q&A?
play it.
Yes, and then we'll go to the Q&A shortly.
Cool.
If you haven't yet, folks, hit that like button no matter where you're watching.
Okay. Let me find this part.
This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, yeah.
You even hear him saying, we can show these documents, right? Because he knows it's classified, and keep listening.
Declassified. See, as president, I could have declassified. Now I can't.
Wait a second. Hang on. Stop
See,
it.
as president, I could have declassified it. Now I
Actually,
can't.
hang on. You left out a key word there. What was the key
As
word you
president,
left
I
out?
could have
Right.
declassified it,
No.
now I
Before
can't.
that, he said right. He said, well, we can show these, right? That sounded like a question, not a declarative statement.
No, he's telling them.
I don't
The
know.
context of
Context
this-
doesn't seem so clear to me.
He was showing Department of Defense war plans against Iran to a bunch of reporters at a dinner party. That was the context. This is
It
also included in the
sounded,
Jack
it
Smith
sounded
indictment.
like a question.
It's not a question. He doesn't.
I
Even
don't
claim
know.
It. He doesn't even claim it was a question. That's not even his excuse for this. So you're making an excuse for him that he doesn't make himself. That's fine. He
Yeah,
just
so,
says,
no. It sounds
what
like a
he's
question.
saying-
Do you see what I mean
his-
by
his
hang on,
defense of
hang on.
this
Do you see
is
why
that
I
it wasn't
say-
actually
I don't care about
classified,
your
it was something
TDS. I'm
else.
pointing out.
No, I'm telling you
Do
what
you
Trump
see-
said.
that's
You have
nice.
Trump devotion
Do you
syndrome.
see why it is that I would be like, well, wait a second. When you make all of these inferences, right? I'm going to infer this. I'm going to
Taking him
infer
at his
this. I'm
word.
going to infer this. What we have to do is accept your framework for these things first before we can dive into this inferencing being true. That's one. And the second is
No.
it's not a determination about intent itself. And so that's why I'm always cautious about calling someone a liar. Now, if you want to come back and have a debate on these specific issues, I'm happy to do that.
Cool.
In this particular case, though, right, you'd never demonstrated how fucking Trump was a fascist ever and still haven't.
I didn't demonstrate it according to your extremely narrow standard that you were extremely
No, not even
stubborn
according
about.
to your
so,
own
yeah.
standard.
I explained my standard multiple times. If you still don't understand it after a 2-hour debate, that's fine.
Yeah, but do you realize though that you saying, "Oh, I just have this stand," we're back to the lighter thing. This lighter's fascistic because you agree it's fascistic.
Okay, this bottle cap's fascistic. My chapstick's fascistic. Everything's
Yeah,
fascistic.
this cup of coffee's fascistic. Just
Yep.
anything that I agree to is going to be fascistic.
James, don't tell me your microphone's fascistic too.
We're not going to actually make a comparison between the worldviews. We're not actually going to talk about the history of the thing.
We're just going to do pedantic questions and going in circles for 2 hours.
This might be a good opportunity to jump into the Q&A. We have a lot of questions, so we're going to move fast. Thank you very much for your questions. And folks, as mentioned, at the bottom right of your screen, you can see part of the lineup for DebateCon 7. Click that link in the description box, also pinned at the top of the chat. It'll have debaters such as David Wood, Apostate Prophet, Daniel Hakikachu, Andrew's buddy, and Jake, Muslim Metaphysician. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be amazing. Go ahead, Adam.
Can I pee real quick? I don't want to derail the Q&A. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Woman, give me a cup of coffee, please.
It's going to be amazing. But like I said, whether you're watching at Modern Day Debate, or maybe, I think Adam might be streaming as well, or if you're watching at The Crucible, hit the like button. Maybe you thought that Andrew or Adam was more persuasive tonight. Whoever it was
me.
If you want more people to see it, hit like, as that will make it so that the algorithm pushes it out. And mysterious algorithm. Other stuff. Consider hitting that share button as well, and that goes for all channels that you're watching at. Let me check if Adam is streaming right now. Adam, let's see here. But we do appreciate your support, so thank you very much for that. And this has been a tremendous debate. I let the dialogue go a little bit longer than usual because the conversation was just fantastic. But other housekeeping things at the bottom right of your screen, as I mentioned, that's DebateCon 7. If you're not able to make it, you're like, listen, I'm in Australia, Antarctica, whatever it is. I can't make it too far. You can watch it live from home by becoming a channel member at the final word level. Now, Andrew and I are going to have a quick debate while Adam is gone on whether or not Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones is better.
Lord of the Rings is better.
I don't know. I have to rewatch it, though, because it's been like 10 years since I watched it. So
I got one argument, and I'll always win this debate. The ending of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I win.
I think it's... And then, Lord of the Rings had so many epic awards, but... So maybe
Is Game of Thrones worth watching? I was considering starting it.
What
But I've heard the ending is horrible.
It's good. It's not horrible. It's just unexpected.
It's
doesn't
amazing.
ruin it. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't ruin it.
This one from, thanks for your question. Diet Pepsi says, betting here in the beginning that Andrew will quibble on the Gentile definition versus others that depend on Part C.
Well, I didn't quibble at all. I was very specific about what I think. I think that fascism is a historic movement. I don't think that the criteria is adequately fit. I think it's very nebulous. I think that it was very nebulous, the definitions of ultranationalism, which were given by my opponent and not by me. I feel like the quibbling was on the oppositional side, not my own.
This one coming in from Jonathan Tessier says, was Canada Emergency Act on the Peaceful Convoy fascist? Tell after the answers of both. I'll let you guys answer, and then I'll tell what this person wants me to tell you guys. But was Americans or Canada's Emergency Act on the Peaceful Convoy fascist?
I'd have to know more about the act, but I don't think one act in isolation can be fascism, which is going to be a conjunction of different behaviors and ways of presenting yourself politically.
But there are fascist actions.
There could be fascistic actions, sure.
That's what he's asking.
He said fascist, but sure. I'm just not familiar with the case, so I need to know more about it. I don't know.
Okay, so I would say no. It's not. Well, I don't. Again, fascism is pure act, but it's a systemic thing. It's not equal to anything within the idea of an action. I don't think that that's the case. So I would say no. I think that it was fucking some authoritarian ass shit. Sure.
You got it. They said it was judged illegal and the appeal of Trudeau was rejected. Greek archaeology says, I'm watching Smoky Man with my secular humanist husband, Matt. Heart emoji, heart emoji. This one from Mr. Black says, Trump and all of them, both sides, all sorcerers, all registered voters, both sides are Nazi. Nothing? Okay. Mason Miller says, the left doesn't attack Trump because he's a fascist. They call him a fascist
Right.
so that they can attack him.
Correct. This is what I'm saying. I think that what all that's happening here, and I demonstrated it well, he agrees that this is loaded language, specifically loaded language designed to vilify, specifically, which interestingly enough is in his own categorization of fascism. But it's designed to vilify the opposition, and it's designed to put a bunch of loaded moral baggage at their feet so that you equate them with people who did the Holocaust, stuff like this. That's the whole point of it. But when you match it up with any historicity of what fascism is, it fucking falls apart on its face. We literally reduced it down to it's rhetorically ultra nationalist. It's like, what the fuck are we even talking about?
You got it. This one from Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, do fascists lock up their political opponents? If yes, why did the Biden admin target Trump for criminal charges? When did Trump do that to Obama?
The Biden administration did not target Trump with criminal charges. Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel, and Merrick Garland was so studious and so focused on making sure there was no bias here that he even paused the investigation during the 2022 midterms just to remove any even optics of bias being there. And if you read the Jack Smith indictments, pretty clear Trump did the stuff, and Trump has tried to put Letitia James and James Comey in jail and threatened the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell with investigation to get him to lower Fed rates. And Obama never did that. Biden never did that either.
Groovy Banana says, if you accepted that I'm right, would you agree that I'm right?
Yeah, exactly. that was the cringiest part of the whole debate. The whole idea was like, if you accepted my definition,
Still don't understand that?
No, it was incoherent. If you accept that the thing is, if it was the thing is the thing, that it would be the thing. It's like, yeah, sure.
It's not even what I said.
It is totally what you said.
Said if you accept this one
you're
part of my
gonna get
definition.
clipped, Con. You're gonna get clipped.
Don't know about that, but okay.
This one from
gonna get clipped.
Ancient Waves, Modern Graves says, arguing about definitions to ignore the argument. Slimy, sophist, coward, debooter bullshit.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Trump is this thing. Okay, what is that thing? Incoherent bullshit. Oh, okay. Let's not focus. Let's just always grant that the thing is true. For instance, I think that you're gay, Chatter. Therefore, it's true. Because I say it's true. And my definition of gay is you. Therefore, it's true. Don't argue with me about what gay is. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. Don't do that. Just because you have sex with the opposite sex doesn't mean you're not actually gay. Because I say so.
Maryland,
because words don't mean anything. Words don't mean shit. We just make them up as we go.
Well, all words are made up, but
Marilyn says, you both have Stockholm Syndrome. Hierarchy is a sin. I don't know what's going on. FB says fascists
a sin of what? Living? Is this the sin of being alive?
Says fascists are indeed socialists. When you tell a leftist that,
it's true.
They'll usually deflect with some smug line like, oh, so you think buffalo wings come from a buffalo? Not addressing the argument.
Well, actually, I mean, there is merit from a leftist view in saying that, hey, just because the Third Reich said National Socialist Party, so what? The North Koreans have Republic right in the name, right? There is merit in that argument because words mean things, right? Then the definition matters a lot. Then what we mean by it matters a bunch, and unless we do it in this case in fascism, but there's merit to that. The problem here is like, yeah, historically, it's rooted in socialism, and the whole idea of nationalizing the industry was rooted in socialism, and corporatism is rooted in there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
This one from Rachel Wilson says, if fascism were nothing but rhetoric, why the hell would we care if Trump is a fascist?
Exactly.
Obviously, you have a problem with what he's doing, not just what he's saying.
Which is why I said that fascism is a combination of both what he's saying and what he's doing. They're very closely interlinked, which is what he says is used to justify what he does, which otherwise in a vacuum would not be popular.
But he's not doing any ultranationalism. He's not doing any ultranationalism. He's not doing any of the stuff which is the pillar one of the main pillars for fascism. He's not doing any of that.
It's the rhetorical pillar, but I know you don't like hearing that.
I know it's all rhetorical. We should care because he's a rhetorical fascist.
1/3 of it is rhetorical.
Okay. 1/3, 33%.
0.3333 repeating infinitely.
And it's 33% infinite rhetorical fascism. Stupid. It's just stupid.
Emperor Fat Ass Dog says if Trump cured cancer, Adam would turn around and say, "Oh, Trump put doctors out of work."
I actually give Trump credit for Operation Warp Speed, which is the one thing all of his supporters hate the most. So that's probably not true.
This one from Reliance says if Trump is a fascist and you can have a democratic fascism, then what's the problem? Just vote out fascism.
The problem is that fascism uses democracy to rise to power, and then once it has that power, it uses it to undermine democracy. Like, for example, his drafted executive order to seize voting machines with the National Guard.
Ancient Waves Modern Grave says, quote, "You're banking on ambiguity," unquote, while he's been arguing about definitions for the entire debate, then shifts the debate to quote unquote nationalism. Hilarious.
Who?
I don't know.
Sounds like you. I don't know.
I'll say it one more time. They say, "You're banking on," they quote unquote, "you're banking on ambiguity," while he's been arguing about definitions for the entire debate, then shifts the debate to nationalism.
We weren't arguing about the definition of the thing. We're arguing about the qualia of the thing, the quality of the thing. And if it's actually the case that he even fits that criteria. The thing is like, this is all debates with you stupid fucking leftists. You just want us to grant that the shit you say is true.
Grant it all.
His entire, do you realize like his entire argument, and he said this, I couldn't believe he said it, because you're going to get clipped. He literally said this. He said, "Yes, I'm appealing to this guy because he's an expert." He said that. That's what the appeal is, because he says it, so it's true. Like it's completely fallacious on its face.
This is one of Robert Paxton's pillars, which is the undermining of intellectuals and academics, which is fun.
And that makes it true. Why?
It does, just because bananas, Andrew, and because
because what makes that statement true though? What makes it true of fascism?
And bananas and whatever else.
What makes that true of fascism, dude? What makes it true?
I didn't.
You didn't claim it's true, right? So it's not
consensus
true. So
definition
it's just
on
all
fascism.
fucking ambiguity again. It's
No,
ridiculous.
social sciences are just complicated. And there's nuance there. I know you want everything to be very, very black and white. The real world does not work that way.
That's funny because I was the only one with a nuanced position. I was the only one with a nuanced position. And by the way, in sociology, most of the definitions for political movements and historical movements have historic definitions associated with them.
They have historic iterations that are highly debated in terms of what is the lowest common denominator between them.
Yeah, but they have pillars between them, which are universally accepted too.
This one from Maryland
like ultranationalism.
Says, in the kingdom of God, you never have to be disloyal to one to prove your loyalty to another. To require that of anyone is control and manipulation, which is the most basic form of witchcraft. Did any of you understand that?
Say it again.
That is.
I have to. They say in the kingdom of God, you never have to be disloyal to one to prove your loyalty to another. To require that of anyone is control and manipulation, which is the most basic form of witchcraft.
Okay, I think he's making the point here about ultranationalism. The idea that it doesn't have to be like endless devotional loyalty to one thing, and you can't ever be loyal to another thing. Maybe that's it.
That may be. This one from Greek archaeologist Emperor
Andrew Wilson, smart.
Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, if Trump is a fascist, why would he allow his daughter to marry a Jew? Make that make sense.
I don't think fascism has to be anti-Semitic. In fact, Trump actually justifies a lot of his authoritarianism with cracking down on anti-Semitism to violate people's free speech rights.
I mean, he is right about this, is that fascism isn't rooted in anti-Semitism. It's not rooted in racialism either. It's rooted in neither thing.
This one from, by the way, our guests are linked in the description box. Check them out, including at the podcast. If you're listening via the podcast, we put our guest links there as well. This one from Isai Beltran says, these bots think and respond like NPCs. WTF? Let's see who they're talking about. Rachel Wilson says, how can Trump be fascist only in rhetoric, but also fascist in how he is using power? You're like a little contradiction machine.
I don't see the contradiction between being fascist both in rhetoric and then how you act on that rhetoric, but okay.
This one from White Chat says, Khan, with all respect, Never mind. That's weird. Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, why do you have a problem with Democrats being prosecuted when they literally did the same thing to Trump and his coalition?
Because Trump's own chief of staff has admitted on record that the prosecutions of Letitia James and James Comey were vindictive and they were retribution. They don't even deny this. Whereas when you look at the actual prosecutions of Donald Trump under Merrick Garland and Jack Smith, there was a lot of care given to separating political constraints and political interests from the actual procedure of the law being carried out.
But none of that's fascism.
Ancient Waves, Modern Grave says, anything bad said about Trump equals TDS. But we must microscopically define fascism and be surgically precise, otherwise you're wrong. Double standard NPCs. This one from Alejandro Vallejo.
I'm lost on that one too.
Yeah, low-key, me too.
Says, I'll give Wilson a hint. Lefties don't care if he, quote, technically is or isn't fascist. We care that he is a POS that's making the world worse.
That's fair.
Emperor,
I get it, but I care about whether or not you're using morally loaded and morally charged language to try to put that entire history of horrible things done by an ideology on people who don't practice the ideology. I think that that's fucking reprehensible. So that's what I think.
Emperor Fattest Dog says, I bet Adam wishes he could suck on Andrew's cigarette. What the? The Greek archaeology says, what the amazing? MP says, for Adam, how weak should America get before you are comfortable with living here and not getting mentally hurt?
I want a strong America where people have health care and good public transportation and a strong rule of law and liberal democratic values as well as progressive economic policy. Very strong. The strongest.
Super Kafir 3000 says, autocracy is system-based, however,
So I
authoritarian...
don't know, it sounds a lot like America First.
True.
What are you some kind of nationalist?
I'm a patriot, Andrew. Red,
Are
white,
you,
and
are
blue
you a
blood.
nationalist?
I don't think I'm a nationalist, no.
But you're not sure?
I think we should have probably a lot more cooperation with other countries in the UN. I think we should rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. We should be entering trade
None of
deals
that
to change
contradicts
labor standards.
nationalism.
The ultra-nationalist rhetoric I wouldn't use. I wouldn't use nationalist rhetoric or nationalist policy.
You wouldn't use any nationalist policy?
I mean, what are you defining as nationalist policy?
I don't know. I
There's
want a
gonna be-
strong America.
Well, sure, you can overlap pretty much anything with national policy.
What does a strong America look like?
People having good wages and pro-social behavior, communities that are
Let
strong
me ask you this.
and connected.
Would you prioritize the welfare, if you were president, of your own people inside your nation over that of other peoples in other nations?
Of course.
Okay, well, that just sounds like nationalism to me.
Cool.
This one from MP, parentheses, Jaxt 556 says, for Adam, how weak should America get before you are comfortable with living here and not getting mentally hurt?
I think I just answered that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm retarded.
You're
Okay,
good.
super. This one, Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, James, you've been watching Jesse Lee Peterson lately. Always. Giovanni JD says, federalizing the state National Guard is only authoritarian if Khan doesn't like it. That
Well, right. If they're doing it in bad faith,
They
whatever
said-
the fuck that means.
Which the judge, Karen Immergut, said that, right? Because he tried to bring in the California and Texas Guard after she put a TRO on the Portland Guard.
No. We were talking about what happened under LBJ.
Right, I'm talking about Trump's invitation.
Yeah, I know,
of the
but
National
that's not
Guard.
but it's not what he was referencing.
Okay.
Because what we were talking about was when this happened. I think it was LBJ,
I
but
think it
when
was,
when this happened during desegregation, the whole idea behind that was like, is that authoritarian? And you're like, nah, because it wasn't in bad faith. It's like, all right,
I said it was autocratic and structure probably because it's centralizing power to the federal government. But
but that's not authoritarian because it's not done in bad faith.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Did I read this one? This is autocracy is system-based. However, authoritarianism relates to controlling society, among other things. Yes, desegregation was authoritarian.
Yeah, I don't know how it couldn't be. Like, I don't know how it can be that you can when I say some forms of authoritarianism can be good, and then I point out like Lincoln fighting the Civil War or something like this and imposing his authority on the South, and it was like that wasn't in bad faith.
So
You
to
know?
clarify, I
So-
think
so-
the disconnect here might be that I don't think that any instance of the state using its power, even if it's increasing the scale of that power, is going to be inherently authoritarian. Authoritarianism specifically refers to basically the weaponization of law, of the Constitution, to centralize and consolidate power with the leader.
Yeah. So authoritarianism can be good then.
What's an example for it would be good?
Lincoln going through and burning the whole South down in
did
order
he
to
do
stop
that
slavery.
to make himself more powerful, or like reform an institution?
He did it 100% to make sure that the federal government had jurisdiction over states' rights.
That's
Absolutely.
a different question.
Yes, to make the office of the United States more powerful. Yes, it was
For
like
what- for- hold
his
on.
whole stated reason for doing it was to make sure that the United States stayed whole and they became
Exactly.
more powerful.
Well, hold on though. He actually has an interest there that is in the best interest of the country. He's not doing it in a selfish way to make himself more powerful.
Yeah, it was to make the United States more powerful. They were terrified of losing the South because they would lose power.
Yeah, the United
whole-
States
they
being more
would lose-
powerful is not necessarily
Yes, they would
authoritarian,
lose
but
power. Like how? So that's good authoritarianism, right?
I guess
No.
if you define authoritarianism as just exertion of state power, then fine, yeah.
No, I didn't just define. I'm using
Or
your
the expansion
definition
of
here.
state power.
Yeah. The purpose is to gather more authority to your office for the purpose of power itself. You want more power.
But if you engage with the laws and constitution in good faith to increase the scope and power of the government, that's very different than trying to undermine those same
Yeah,
institutions.
but in
to
this case,
accumulate
you could
power
have
with yourself.
You could have both sides doing that, though, is the problem.
You could.
And you did during the Civil War. Both sides thought their interpretation was correct. The one thought that they had the 10th Amendment. The other side thought, nope, you're full of it, right? Like
I would
both
say
sides
the Confederates
are
were
doing this.
probably a little bit more in terms of suppressing, black people and stuff. Which, not to say that the North wasn't suppressing women and other minorities, but I think relatively
And black
speaking,
people?
one was more authoritarian.
Yeah, like when Lincoln said that he would never free a single slave if he thought it would have brought an end to the war and kept the Union whole.
Sure, I'm
'Cause
not
he
saying
didn't give a
these people
shit.
were racial justice warriors back then, but okay.
Yeah, they didn't care.
This one from, do appreciate it. Jack City says, how does Trump say and do one thing, but Adam is able to hear and understand something completely different? Can Adam use that skill anywhere else?
I would ask the same question to people who have somehow deluded themselves into thinking that everything that Trump says is he's just testing a novel legal theory when he tries to overturn election results. He's just listening to the advice of his lawyers when he starts defying courts. He just genuinely thinks that these people who are prosecuting him for crimes he apparently committed are actually deranged, dangerous animals who are enemies of the state and must be put down in the streets like dogs. I happen to think probably not the best intentions behind that, but I understand something like 25 to 30% of the country disagrees with me on that. That's fine.
This one from, do appreciate it. Pause in Eternity says, but Andrew, he's, quote, doing, unquote, the rhetoric.
Yeah, he's not doing any of these pillars of rhetoric. The idea that Trump is doing ultranationalism is categorically false by my opponent's own admission. That Trump, that's why he equivocates, right? He says, no, Trump's a nationalist. He's using ultra nationalistic rhetoric, right? That's not him enacting ultra nationalistic policy, and he knows it. So it's like one of the pillars that holds this whole shit up immediately falls because it makes no sense on its face. None. It's just like it's rhetorical. It's no action at all. It's like, no, he's not doing that. He's not being an ultra nationalist. Totally fucking made up.
So one of the key things any regime needs to be able to establish its power is legitimacy, and oftentimes legitimacy is going to be established by alluding to, in the case of fascism, mythical past, ultranationalism. Propaganda and communication techniques are perhaps one of the most important parts of how these movements rise and fall.
Notice how he doesn't show you how Trump's enacting ultranationalist policy because he's not.
And that was not my claim.
Yeah, exactly. Because when this guy says, the super chatter says, hey, man, you can't actually show us. Or he's showing you he's showing you the policy. It's like, no, he's fucking not. He's instead saying, well, it's rhetorical. There is no policy for ultranationalism, but he's rhetorically
No, I said it can be a policy and an ideology as well, but in the
can
case
be, but is it under Trump? No.
Yes, true.
No.
This one from, do appreciate it. Alejandro Vallejo says, Wilson, if someone commits a horrible act that we call genocide, and after we argue and then agree that it, quote, it technically wasn't a genocide, does that make what they did any less bad?
No.
Well done, Adam.
How is that well done? No. The answer would be no. But the thing is like, if you're going to have a debate on whether or not something is a genocide, right, then you better stick to the confines of if it is that thing. Using morally loaded language post that, right, is irrelevant, erroneous, and has nothing to do with the purview of the debate you're entering into. You can't be like, well, he thinks this is a genocide. He doesn't. They both give their qualifiers. They both give their historic accounts. In this case, I had one. He had none. And you go through all of this, right? And it's never actually established. But I'm supposed to what? Just like grant that it is because you really want me to? Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that.
You did do
You
that.
got it. Thank you very
No,
much.
no, no. I granted for the sake of argument, even if true X. But I went on to give a much more coherent and historically based definition of what fascism is and showed exactly how it actually operates. I went through all of this. Like, the shit you said is completely incoherent, didn't even make sense. It's rhetorically fascist, is nationalist, not an ultra nationalist, just fucking nonsense. It just reduces to nonsense.
Okay.
This one from Matt says, Adam, you're so focused on the schematics of the word that you never showed why Trump's actions were fascist. Give more examples next time.
I would have loved to, but Andrew kept granting all of those things for the sake of argument, and I didn't get to delve into all of them. I did get to talk about him engaging in bad faith. I did mention the Supreme Court decision. There were also a lot of other cases I wish I could have brought up here, but guess not.
You could have, look, you could have brought all of them up. I would have granted those too,
Yeah,
because
so
it
then-
still wouldn't have fucking made him a fascist.
See, so the question's for Andrew then there.
No, the question's for you. If you can make the affirmative claim that this guy's a fascist and why that historic standard would make more sense than mine, why your definition's more coherent, why it is that all of these things actually work together to demonstrate that Trump is the thing, right? And the best you could come up with is he's a rhetorical ultranational. It's just silly.
My definition allows us to nip fascism in the bud, and Andrew's definition wants us to wait till the fascists win to call it fascism.
No, what your definition does, and I'll use the same upspeak because all of you Destiny clones do this. What your
Destiny clone is
definition,
crazy.
what you people do when you're utilizing your upspeak like this, you're not really making points. You just want to sound smart. But here's what's actually going on. What's actually going on is that he just wants to use morally loaded language. He's not trying to nip anything in the bud. It makes absolutely no sense. It's never made any sense, and it's never will. There you go.
This
Academic upspeak.
Ancient Waves Modern Graves says, Andrew is a coward. Trump is fascist, and it's perfectly fine to admit, I voted for it, you slimy sophist. This one from Chalk Body Outline says, if Trump is fascist, why are blue-haired liberals allowed to gang stalk ICE?
Because we're in the fourth stage. That's the fifth stage is when we start locking them all up.
Well, someone was shot about 10 times on the floor yesterday. They didn't have blue hair, though, so maybe that doesn't apply to this question.
This one from Edgar Allan
No, Trump
Poe.
did it. Trump did it.
Says, Andrew, you can call into Matt's show The Line. This one from David Emmanuel says, Andrew, okay. Oh, I thought it was for real at first. They say, Andrew sucks. Boo, Andrew, boo. And Right Wing Nuck says, for Adam, if you had to pick a society to live in, you have to commit to one. Is it Rhodesia or Zimbabwe?
I don't know enough about either of those to really make a educated guess on where I'd rather be. I don't know.
This one from X says, Khan, I'm trying to understand your argument. Is your argument, quote, someone bumps into you in a bar, tells you to meet him outside to fight him, and you go, and he tells you, dude, I didn't mean literally fight?
No.
This one from
It's a rhetorical fight.
Hope Bloom Music says, Adam, make more money reading people's minds, talking to the dead, and revealing people's deepest motivations. Okay. I don't know if that's serious. This one from Jack City says, oops, I meant that to Andrew, not Adam. Oh, sorry about that. All right, let me go back to this one. Jack City says, okay, so this is for you, Andrew. They say, how does Trump say and do one thing, but Adam is able to hear and understand something different? Can Adam use that skill anywhere else?
Yeah, you can. The thing is here, though, is that you have to understand that the use of this specifically is the demonization of opposition in order to put the sins of an ideology which the United States battled against. By the way, I battled against third positionists for years. I understand the ideology inside and out, which is how I know exactly that Trump is not one. Okay. In fact, my opponent grants that he has no ideology ultimately. He's not really an ideologue. He's more of a demagogue from the leftist perspective. They're literally just trying to put this morally, reprehensible language on him, because then that justifies resisting. You got to resist the Nazi. You got to resist the fascist.
I just want to be clear. I think people should fight like hell or they're not going to have a country anymore, but they should do so peacefully and patriotically.
John Smith says, Khan, do you think breaking down centralized government power like Trump is doing is an example of fascism?
Yeah.
How often is he lost at SCOTUS? Garcia was overturned.
Garcia was overturned, and then Trump dragged his feet for 2 months. First, he said the Supreme Court actually ruled in our favor. Then after that, he said we couldn't even bring back Garcia if we wanted. Then a week later, he did an interview saying I could bring Garcia back if I wanted to, but I don't want to bring him back. And then they brought him back, I think it was in May or June maybe, on trumped up indictments, which the judge currently is evaluating whether those were vindictive charges, just to punish him. So
this one from Joe C. says, Adam, so are you saying that Billy Graham had a better handle on Jesus' teachings than Jesus himself?
Exactly.
Because Billy was a scholar on Jesus' teaching?
This is where, I don't know if it's because I'm a Zoomer. I don't even know who Billy Graham is. Maybe that's like a...
Well, he's a mega pastor.
Okay.
So he's asking, is Billy Graham going to be the authority on Jesus? Or would you think that Christians would look at what Jesus said as being the authority on Jesus?
For people that believe in Christianity or like observers of Christianity? Because I would obviously go
Both.
to people who study theology over like a pastor in terms of understanding
Pastors do
what
study
Christianity
theology.
is. Okay.
Yeah, pastors do study theology, but the
People
thing
who
is,
study the theology separate from being within.
but how would a person dispute what a pastor says?
What do you mean?
Like if a pastor said Jesus believed that you should slap women in the face, what would the refutation the average person who's a Christian what would they use to tell the pastor they were incorrect, that Jesus didn't want that?
Their interpretation of the Bible.
So the source material.
Their interpretation of it.
The source material, though.
Yes, their interpretation.
So you would recommend that if they want to make these refutations, they should go to the source material, not appeal to another pastor. Right?
They could appeal to an academic who has extrapolated common themes from the source material to paint a broad picture of what this actually is, but I would want them to go to multiple sources.
Okay, including the original source itself.
Sure.
Yeah.
This from CTC Firebird says, people who keep claiming fascist, Nazi, racist, etc. should look at themselves in the mirror.
I just did. I had to go pee and I saw myself in the mirror, so.
Jack City says, Andrew doesn't speak English, he speaks Trump. This one from Super Flores Brother says, if Trump is a fascist, why doesn't he have a silly little mustache? Checkmate, leftist.
I actually concede, my bad.
Or scars on his face.
True.
That was a big thing with fascists. They like to cut each other's face with sabers.
Wow.
That was part of the whole ultra nationalism thing. You got to be a part of the club,
Right.
This one from, write that down. Catman says, question for Adam. Would you not look to Marx to define Marxism? Why not do the same with fascism?
I actually think that Robert Paxton addresses this in his essay where he says that fascism should not really be considered an ism in the same way that Marxism and liberalism are, specifically because fascists are not great authorities on what their actual motivations are. They're always going to dress up their motivations in morally righteous and propagandized language, and it's important to sort of zoom out. I would say if you're looking at Marxist
everybody
states
in every ideology.
Right. So if you're talking about totalitarian left states, in that situation, I would say don't really go so much to Marx. Go to the instances of Stalin and Lenin, all these people, and look for the commonalities there.
Can you name a single ideology where people aren't doing that?
Aren't doing what?
Aren't dressing up the language and consistencies and things like this that you just cited?
I don't understand what you're asking me right now.
When you just responded to the super chatter, you told the super chatter that it's not an ism. Can you explain again why it shouldn't be looked at as an ism?
So Paxton says that fascism, their stated goals often don't align with how they actually end up governing and how they actually conceive of their power and their role as government.
Can you name any ideology that's not the case of?
probably like democratic liberalism, things that focus on negative rights, because in violating those, it's going to be pretty clear when that takes place. Whereas the entire purpose of fascism is to mask the ugly truth with socially acceptable and popular language. It's the whole point of the propaganda.
That's every ism I can think of, including liberalism. There's not a single one that's not prey to that very same thing happening.
Liberalism doesn't necessitate propaganda. I don't think Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama were propagandizing the way that Donald Trump is.
Yes, it does. What are you talking? Of course, liberalism is part of propaganda. We use propaganda all over the world. Liberal nations use propaganda all over the world.
Well, if you're talking about us invading other countries and settling in them,
no, I'm talking about exporting value structures, democracy. Democracy is the greatest structure on earth. That's propaganda.
But the whole point of liberalism is that the powers that be have to be falsifiable, right? If you win an election, you can lose the next one. There is a structure built into that which allows for power not to consolidate and freeze up somewhere.
That has no bearing at all.
Whereas in fascism,
people can
the concentration of power is one of the central goals, and it needs to be concealed with appeals to propagandistic language.
It doesn't need to be concealed. That's silly.
Well, they stop concealing it once they win. So
no, it doesn't even need to be concealed in its outset. A lot of times, actually, fascists were demonstrating that they wanted power specifically to fix a bunch of issues. They're not concealing nothing.
They weren't demonstrating their most extreme policies until they actually were in a position to actually implement them. They always water it down a little bit. They water it down a little bit to get their foot in the door.
Like which of Mussolini's policies do you think was the most watered down?
I'm not familiar with Mussolini's policies.
Of course, you're not familiar with any of the source material.
Yeah, I've spent the last few days reading a few books and papers on this. I guess they're just fake or something. I don't know. Or they're liberal propaganda.
None of the source material from the actual architects of the fascists themselves.
People who are qualified enough to interpret the source material.
Yeah, complete appeal to authority. This guy's
not an academic.
What makes what they're saying true, though? What makes it true from your view?
I'm not saying it's objectively true.
Yeah, but what makes it true from your view? Just that they say it?
The definition they lay out to me is more useful functionally, because a definition of fascism that is too narrow. This is why I asked you over versus under inclusive. I would rather have a definition that is possibly over inclusive than one that is under inclusive, because if you call fascism out too late, you've already lost.
But you can't say that you would just have a definition that actually fits the thing. You know, it has to be over inclusive or this. It's like you could just actually have it fit what it is.
This from Matt says, have you guys watched Breaking Bad? Do you like it?
I have, and I do. I love it. It's a great show, for sure.
It's a great show.
Best show of
I think
all
it was
time?
voted one of the best shows ever in the history of TV.
Yeah.
I have a hot take that Ozark is better, but Breaking Bad is super good too. So
Ozark's not better than Breaking Bad.
Ozark is amazing.
It's not better than Breaking Bad.
We'll do a second debate on that.
This one from Sean McDonald says,
wasn't enough humor.
Making arguments form authority isn't an argument. Adam has pushed me into the no camp. Thanks.
You're welcome.
This one from Mario says, Adam, does Trump know he's a fascist?
Does this mean, does Trump think he's a fascist? I don't know. I think he probably conceives himself as an authoritarian.
Come on, dude. You just said earlier he doesn't have ideology. Now you're not sure if he conceives of himself as a fascist.
I said he conceives himself as an authoritarian.
Yeah, that's not the question you were asked. You were asked if he conceives of himself as a fascist.
Probably not.
Do you honestly? Yeah, no.
Probably not. No.
No, just say no. You don't think Trump believes he's a fascist? Come on.
Okay, Andrew. No. There you go.
God, it's just why do I have to pull these fucking things out of you? I just gotta pull them out like I'm pulling out a rotten tooth.
This one from fresh. This one just came in from Alejandro Vallejo. Says, Wilson says, quote, using morally charged words to attack your opposition is disgusting, but proceeds to use an extremely vague and inappropriate definition of authoritarianism to attack opposing viewpoints.
Which one? Which definition did I use? Which was nebulous or vague?
Oh, authoritarianism, they say.
Yeah, which definition did I use? Which was nebulous or vague?
Okay. Zach Gelpri says, Mustache Man outlined everything he wanted to do before he got power in the book he wrote in prison.
Yeah, he did. He wrote a book. What was it? My Journey or whatever, Mein Kampf. So the thing is and it's not just him. You see this in fascist Italy too. And it's this idea that you have to hide your power level is fucking ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. Did Hitler openly advocate from the beginning of his political career for the Enabling Act?
I'm not sure.
Okay, and I'm genuinely asking. I'm not trying to make a point there, but it seems like some of the authoritarian power grabs were kind of saved for once he had made alliances in the military and had kind
Well,
of
I
the
don't
cover
think
to
I
do
don't
that.
I don't think in the beginning that Hitler was looking for war with Europe. I don't think that that was the stated goal. He wanted the reconciliation of Germany, but I don't think that he wanted to have an expansive, massive war. He stated early on, especially with England, he didn't want one. So I think that if there was things which were done during his war powers, he may not indeed have meant for those, but he himself may not have known that, hey, these are things that I'm going to be going for if I'm imbued with war powers, right?
Sure.
This one, do appreciate it. Sean McDonald says, making arguments from authority isn't an argument. Adam has pushed me. Oh, sorry about that. Thought it loaded. This one from, okay, they're just not loading. Giovanni JD says, Khan making a massive philosophical error. Definitions are not prescriptions. They are used to identify and refer to an actual thing.
Yeah.
And definitions are essentially referring to constructs, and there's never going to be full consensus on what those constructs are. There's going to be more consensus in the hard sciences, I think, but when it comes to social sciences, definitions are one of the most hotly debated topics in the entire field. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm an academic here.
Well, hang on though. Do you agree that in order for a definition to be useful, it needs to be pointing at something, right? Which is generally descriptively true experientially.
Sure. The question
hang
is
on, experientially.
The question is, with what level of specificity is it pointing? Is it pointing in a general direction? And like, if so, how granular is it getting in identifying the thing it's defining?
I don't think
That's
it needs
vary.
to be granular or hyper specific.
I'm not
but
saying
I do think that definitions generally rely on pillars, and literally that, like the definitions, right? They rely on pillars in order to make the case of what it is that they're defining. And I think in this particular case, when you have in sociology, especially when we're talking about historical political movements, that's going to rely heavily on historic accuracy and historic definitions, especially of the architects themselves.
This one from Joe C 2432 says, Khan, if I said that I was going to unalive the whole chat, does that make me the most prolific serial killer rhetorically?
I don't think rhetorical serial killing is a thing.
Why not? Why can't it be?
Serial killing is almost always an action.
It's pure act.
Serial killing, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like there's.
It's almost like not everything is the same thing.
It's like
things,
the thing.
Words have different characteristics.
It's like when the early fascists said, whose whole philosophy was pure act. Literally, that's his whole philosophy.
Yes,
his philosophical outlook of pure act actually meant pure act. That's crazy. Kind of like in this case with the chat, that would be, no, you can't be like a rhetorical fascist, right? You're either
the difference is that even
not.
You agreed with me that ultranationalism can be a rhetorical and propagandistic strategy. I'm not aware of anything called rhetorical serial killing. Maybe there's something like
what
that.
I agreed with is that it's true that ultranationalists use propaganda, but I was saying that you could have an ultranationalist state absent propaganda. You disagreed with that, and then agreed, exactly.
No, you can have an ultranationalist state in terms of policy. I'm referring to propaganda and messaging used to justify power grabs.
Yeah, so it's not a necessary condition, and you haven't met any necessary conditions.
Depends on what iteration of the word you're using. It can be an ideology. It can be
the correct one.
It
is an ideology. Fascism and communism and all of these are ideologies. Listen. Okay. It's fucking stupid that these people try to convince you, the audience, that fascism is not a historic ideology that has real pillars that hold it up, because it does. They're just like, nope, this is my definition. He's rhetorical ultranationalist. Rhetorical ultranationalist. It's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
This one from Pause in Eternity says, the fact that the word fascism is debated so hotly around Trump is proof the word is clearly weaponized. It's damaging enough to be arguing it at all.
Yeah, so if you actually watch my content, I almost 99.9% of the time just call Trump an authoritarian, specifically because there's so much baggage associated with the word fascism that it's almost never worth getting down to the nitty-gritty when you can just use the word like right-wing authoritarianism, like fascistic authoritarianism.
And I'll give you credit for that. right? But I did see you. I mean, I have watched some videos where you dive into why you think Trump is a fascist, right? And I'm not even saying that all of this is unreasoned. I'm not saying that.
Sure.
I'm just saying it's bad reasoning.
Okay.
And it doesn't comport with descriptive reality of what we're actually trying to get at here. And so ultimately, when we're talking about this, when we're talking about fascism, right? The contextualization is so important, and why this debate is so important is because I want the fucking left to stop calling everything fascist that they don't like. Because what it does is, if there really was a march towards fascism, like
This
an
I agree
actual
with.
one, it's going to be completely delegitimized by the fact that these fuckers don't even know what it is.
No, so I've talked about this as well on my channel, especially during lives, that people that have been calling like Barack Obama a fascist and Joe Biden like people that have been using this word for anyone they don't like, they have now put people in the position where they can never use that word without half the country going, "Well, you're exaggerating as always." It's like the boy who cried wolf or whatever. So I think
It's the
in
same
terms
thing
of
with
colloquial,
Nazi.
I think
Same thing.
colloquially speaking, it's like almost useless because no two people are going to agree fully on what it means. But
It's the same thing with Nazi. This is a big problem. Like,
sure,
that should be reserved for actual Nazis. It
True.
really should.
I agree.
Because if it's not, the meaning of the thing is completely displaced. And like, that used to be a really effective thing for you guys, well, actually for everybody. If they said, this guy's a Nazi, that used to hold a lot of weight. Now it fucking doesn't. Okay, now it doesn't hold any. They just call everybody a fucking Nazi.
This one from Jaxt said, "Answer my question distinctly, young man. How weak do you want your own country to be before you're comfortable it's no longer fascist?"
I don't know what he wants me to say. The weakest ever, the weakest of all time.
This one from Lord Lost 120 says, "Definitions are descriptors, meaning they describe something. If they over encompass and are overly broad, they are not describing that thing."
And the same could be said if they under encompass and don't include everything that ought to be included. And again, I'm not claiming I've solved the debate that has existed in academia for decades now. I'm just saying that I think that my definition is probably more useful in practical terms to identify when fascists are rising up into power.
And my fundamental disagreement at its crux is that they're identifying things which are associated with other things that aren't fascism much more than they're identifying anything which is a pillar to fascism, chiefly things like corporatism, things like the ultranationalism, which would be a required pillar, things like this that you actually probably should be on the lookout for. They don't do that. Instead, they use the nebulous nature of authoritarianism, right? Which for him, in order to avoid calling things authoritarian, he has to add bad faith, right? Which is just terrible. By the way, that in and of itself is terrible rhetoric, but it's terrible for a definition too. It's like bad faith meaning what? Oh, I think they're lying. It's like, okay. I mean, now we're gonna attribute intent here with whether or not the person's policy is good or bad because of how they meant it. It's like, nah, man, that's not how it works. And not only that, the thing that's really silly about it is like I didn't give something which is under encompassing. I gave a much more encompassing definition and a historically based accurate view for the philosophy of fascism. It's much more encompassing than his. Much, much more.
I think the bottom line is that when Andrew uses the word fascist and when I use the word fascist, we are referring to different constructs underlying that word.
Yeah, mine is referencing fascism. His is referencing some bullshit.
That's circular, but okay.
This one from, let me just double check. I think that's, oh, thanks for your last minute super chat. Appreciate that, X. It says, "Adam, by your definition of fascism, you have to qualify every single person a fascist in order not to, quote unquote, underqualify them and to be safe. Can you elaborate in pre-labeling people, quote, to stop fascists before they gain governmental control?"
So number one, I'm not advocating for labeling anything. Like I very rarely call Trump a fascist. I think he is one, but I don't think it's a hill that I want to die on in terms of just debating over and over again. What does this mean? I think authoritarianism colloquially is going to get across a lot of these same tenets, especially if you say like right-wing authoritarianism or ultranationalist authoritarianism. But in terms of being under or over encompassing, I think the issue here also is that people assume that fascism is like some kind of static end state. And I'm describing fascism as more of a process that oftentimes does not have to win, right? The stage one described by Robert Paxton exists in almost every democracy.
Yeah, but this doesn't actually answer to what he's saying. He's saying if you truly believe that you should have an over-encompassing definition. If you really wanted to be consistent with that, then why not start everybody out as a fascist until proven otherwise?
Well, I don't think my definition is over-encompassing. I'm saying that if we're trying to get very granular on like where exactly is the line, I would rather be over-encompassing than under-encompassing.
Yeah, but how is mine super granular or more hyper-specific than your own? It's not. It encompasses a much broader avenue for the actual ideology.
It necessitates ideology such that someone could literally copy every single thing in terms of behavior, but if they don't necessarily believe it ideologically, you probably wouldn't want to call them a fascist, right? Even if all the harms they're inflicting on society are the same. You took issue with like my
if they are moving for those tenets of corporatism and things like this, right? And then just said, "Oh, I'm not a fascist." Yeah, I'd be like, "Nah, man, you're a fascist."
But then I thought you said it's ideology.
It is ideology.
What if they're genuinely, that's not their ideology? They just happen to be doing that stuff for other reasons.
How could you do corporatism absent ideology? Just accidentally?
I'm saying, what if fascism isn't their ideology for doing corporatism?
What
if someone checks all the boxes behaviorally that you would consider fascist, but their underlying ideology is not this Giovanni Gentile definition that you like using in terms of why they're doing it?
Oh, well, then there would be some sort of authoritarianism that we would attribute
would
to
you
that.
At least
That's
say
not fascism.
Fascistic authoritarian.
But I'm not sure. I don't think, because it's so rooted in a philosophy, I actually don't think you could get to it without ideology, actual fact. I don't even think it's possible.
Okay, we disagree. I think it's more of an emergent social phenomenon. I don't believe either in this like great man theory that like what one guy believes is going to dictate everything. These things spring up organically through changing variables within countries and the political sensibilities and also grievances of the population.
Which ones? Which countries did they organically spring up in? They were all ideologies which were designed to counter other ideologies. There's nothing fucking organic about them at all.
Hold on. Did they not have to actually build a base organically in the populace?
That has nothing to do with whether or not these things popped up organically. They were based on ideology. Communism is based on ideology. Who cares if it had an organically
it's not that it
growing base?
Pops up in a binary way, but its growth and its instituting itself into the wheels of government is going to happen through actually expanding the base that's going to be standing behind it.
That's just pure sophistry. You just got done saying, "Hey, wait a second, man. I think that these things can just organically pop up." And I'm like, no, they really don't. They all of these cases were ideological responses to other ideologies. And you're like, well, no, but not the base, though. That was organic. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Ideological responses can pop up organically in response to variables, right? So like reactionary ideology is typically going to pop up after periods of like intense social liberalization or like opening up of society or changing of sociocultural norms. That's all I'm saying.
These things were not organic, though. Do you agree with that?
What do you think I mean by organic?
Like they somehow like something akin to spontaneous, maybe?
No, I'm saying that they arise as a natural result of the circumstances within which they exist. Like there are certain circumstances within which fascism probably wouldn't work. I think Paxton talks about how fascism in the UK was not able to succeed because the conservatives already had such a strong majority that the appeal of fascism was not as strong as it would be if the left had power.
Ideologically.
In terms of sentiment, which undergirds the movement. I mean,
no, it was just ideologically didn't.
I guess the reason I take issue with the word ideology is ideology to me feels like a very formalized set of doctrine. Maybe you just mean ideology is like how
it is a very formalized
kind of
set of
feel
doctrine
about stuff.
No, it's a very in this case, it's a very consistent formal doctrine. Fascism is a very consistent formal doctrine that's based on a philosophy called idealism.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. But
how do you oh yeah, you don't? Can you even tell me what idealism as a philosophy is?
No, I'm not familiar with idealism.
Yeah, so how the fuck do you even know? Like, how do you even know that? How do you even know that these tenets?
It's a category error. I don't think fascism is an ideology in the first place.
That's not a category error.
Yeah,
that's not what that word means. That's not what category error means.
You're saying it's in the category of ideological doctrine. I'm saying it's in the category of socio-political movements.
Wait a second. Do you believe that fascism is an ideology also, at least?
Probably, yeah.
Then how could I be making a category error?
Because you're trying to project how you define fascism onto me, which has been the theme of like the last 3 hours.
No, but that wouldn't be a category error.
In terms of how I define it, it would be, right?
No, it still wouldn't be, because you say it's both. It's both categories.
Okay. But in the context,
no, it wouldn't be a category error.
I'm discussing it, it's not, but okay.
This one from.
Yeah, but it still is, even in the context you're discussing it. It has to be, it's both still, even in your context, right?
Not in the context I've been discussing. I didn't talk about ideology at all in this debate. I opened my statement by saying it's not an ideology, it's not a doctrine.
Yeah, but
and how
you
I'm
believe
defining
that
it
it
here.
is, so I can't be making a category error.
There can be ideology that naturally leads to fascism forming, but that doesn't mean that it has to be the only way for fascism to pop up. That's the issue I'm taking with this.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be a category error is my point. And so not only that, right? Not to harp on this like a pedant, but it is actually important.
Okay.
And the other thing to point out here is that yeah, these are ideologically driven. You don't even understand the ideology behind them. So, like, how the fuck would you even know that? Idealism, the idea of ultranationalism, what they meant by the state, how Giovanni Gentile and how Mussolini engaged with these, what the third position is. Like, you don't know any of that shit. You literally are just appealing to some academic who says, "Here's what I think it is."
An academic who I'm going to guess knows more about all those things than you, but that's probably also an appeal to authority, I'm guessing. And academics just don't matter. They're just liberal propaganda or whatever, so that's fine.
This one from Matt says, Andrew, do you believe Nick Fuentes is a fascist?
No.
Lord Law says, bad descriptors mean bad definitions. Darth Grumpy Dad says, the reason this commie is afraid of Trump being fascist is because fascists throw commies out of helicopters.
It is true.
Someone should tell the commies that I'm a commie because they think I'm like a neoliberal capitalist shill or whatever. So that's news to me.
Fascists, generally speaking, yeah, they tend to kill off communists. That is true. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They tend to do that because it is reactionary towards communism. Ultimately, it is reactionary. Ultimately, I would say, and so yeah, they do tend to kill communists. There's no doubt about that.
BK Finest says Adam is rhetorical nationalism and abstract meaning subjective (parentheses is all about my feelings), or concrete meaning objectives, namely points, historic movements absent my feelings. Or can you say I hate Trump?
I can say both. So first of all, I do hate Trump, but then secondarily, I would say that when I speak about rhetorical ultranationalism, what I'm getting at is the illusion. Again, regimes build legitimacy a lot of times by using specific rhetoric to justify or manufacture consent for the actions they are taking. Ultranationalism can be a very lucrative way to do that because people love their country. If you can take advantage of that and take it to an extreme, you can start justifying a lot of extreme actions because, listen, this is what we have to do for our nation.
Yeah, but again, I just consider all that sophistry. I think that what he's getting at there, he's just saying, I think that every ideology does this. They all make appeals to various things which they want to institute and utilize propaganda for the things that they want to institute. And it's like the thing here about ultranationalism, and he says rhetorical ultranationalism, it doesn't really give us any specifics about ultranationalism. He says a zero-sum game, but then concedes there could be ultranationalism without a zero-sum game. I was like, I don't know how we even get to any of these specifics because ultranationalism historically has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the body of the state being the loyalty embargo, meaning you and your population, you owe your loyalty first and foremost to the state, and the state takes precedent over all other priorities. That's ultranationalism, not I put my nation first. That's not ultranationalism.
Is America first an ultranationalist slogan to you?
Nope.
Okay.
And I can demonstrate it. I'll demonstrate it very quickly. I was just asking,
but sure.
Hang on, I'll demonstrate it very quickly. Nationalism is putting your nation above other nations. That would be America first. The same thing that you just claimed you wanted to do. When I asked you, would you put your people group in your country before other countries? Your answer, yes. So how could that be ultranationalist? It couldn't, because you're not an ultranationalist.
I was just asking because it sounded like right before that you said that ultranationalism is when you want to put your country above, but maybe I misheard you.
No. Very specifically, and I've given this definition like 80 times, right? Okay. So if you clip it out of context, it will make you look stupid. But here's what I actually said. Okay. Here's what I actually said. What I actually said was, nationalism is you putting your country before other countries. Ultranationalism is that there's no priority from the people's perspective or governments or corporations which transcends the interest of the state. That is ultranationalism.
This one from, do appreciate it. Michael Taylor says, the Biden admin threatened social media companies to punish American citizens for wrongthink on behalf of the state. Quite possibly the most fascist thing you can do, and the left defended it because, quote, it's okay when we do it.
This is just not true. The Biden administration made requests to social media companies about, hey, can you take down this ivermectin disinformation or something? And in many cases, the companies said no, and there was no legal repercussion there. Juxtapose that with Trump, who is actually threatening these companies. He has, what's his press secretary's name? Carolyn Levitt. She's calling CBS saying, upload this interview unedited or we're going to sue your ass off. And where Trump is forcing companies basically to settle lawsuits with him to get merger approvals. That seems a lot more fascistic to me than the Biden had been making requests.
This one from Joe C says, Khan, you missed the logical point. If all A is B, it doesn't mean all B is A. All fascists may be authoritarian, but the reverse, not so much.
Right.
I agree. It can
Authoritarianism
be-
is not fascism.
I agree.
Techno Hippie says, which do you mean by fascism? 1, a doctrine. 2, a power structure. 3, a behavioral toolkit. Or 4, a psychological disposition. Choose
A
and
behavioral
define the
toolkit
thing.
used to establish a power structure.
Yeah, and so I think that it's a doctrine and a power structure at a systemic level, and that the ideology that it is in fact an ideology.
Okay.
I haven't seen any instances of any spontaneity for this ideology. It's a reasoned ideology which relies on a philosophy of idealism. And it's very important that you note that my opponent said that Trump, from his view, has no ideals. He's not an idealist at all.
I did give
Now-
a couple examples of ideals that he has, but I said broadly speaking, he's not
Broadly speaking,
ideological.
he's not. And understand that I'm not going to equivocate here and try to say that idealism, the philosophy, is the same as me asking if Trump is an idealist. We're asking about the commons there versus a philosophical standard. But what I am pointing out to you is that idealism itself is a reasoned out philosophical position, which is then that's what's juxtaposed into the ideals of fascism itself. And this is the big issue that I have. And my opponent he just doesn't know anything about fascism. The whole thing is just an appeal to some guy. It's just an appeal to some guy, but
Yeah, some
he's a
random guy I
widely
saw on the
regarded
street.
guy. He's a widely regarded guy though. So it's not an appeal to authority fallacy. It's not.
This one from Straight Shot says to Andrew, are all fascists anti-Christian in all cases?
No.
Okay. And then
Mussolini was not anti-Christian. He worked with the Catholic Church, and interestingly enough, was one of the first nations to implement miscegenation because he wasn't a racialist. He believed that race was purely a social construct. He thought that it was more feelings-based than it was based around the idea. That's where you get the idea of cultural nationalism, by the way. Cultural nationalism comes from this idea of shared culture rather than shared racial values. So the third position is very interesting that way. And it did reconcile a lot of the incoherencies on the right for a while until people started challenging it, like me.
This one from Chalk Body Outline says he thinks liberalism doesn't need propaganda, and that's why he appeals to liberal propaganda disguised as an expert.
Damn. Got me.
BK Finest says, Adam, you think Robert Paxton is your god? Don't answer the question. It's rhetorical. This from Matt. This is, they say, Andrew, can you elaborate thoughts on Nick Fuentes, namely why he's not a fascist?
Because he doesn't believe, he's not a corporatist, and he doesn't believe in the framework of idealism. He believes in the framework of Catholic hierarchy. And so what Fuentes is doing, you might say he's a theocrat. I think that he might even accept that, or some form of theocracy, perhaps. Though I'm not even sure he advocates for that. But the reason he doesn't fall into the category for fascism is because there's no corporatism, there's no idealism. He's not making that genetic appeal that I spoke about before, right? I can't remember the word off the top of my head. Sorry about that. Paleogenetic, yeah. He's not making a paleogenetic appeal. He just literal throwback, right? No, it's not taking that necessarily and forming something new. And I'm not sure that I would even consider him to be an ultra nationalist in the sense that he wants all loyalty to go through the state. I would say instead that he's more of what I would consider an ethno-nationalist. I think he falls better under the criteria of ethno-nationalism than he would fascism.
You got it. Thank you very much for this one from Rachel Wilson. Says Democrat President Woodrow Wilson used the phrase America First in 1915 for his campaign slogan. Was he also a fascist?
I don't know much about Woodrow Wilson, but I'm going to say probably not. I'd have to read more about him.
Was that fascist rhetoric?
America First in and of itself, no.
Okay.
You got it. Let's see. I think we're caught up. This one from Strange Mentality Paper YouTube says, Andrew, how many times do you have to be told by your opponents that your tactics, attitude, and behavior are making a mockery of the debate discipline before you start to consider it's true?
Well, I mean, in this particular case, I don't think we were particularly unpleasant to each other.
I had fun.
Yeah. Did you feel like I was particularly unpleasant to you?
You did call me a snarky fuck, but that's fair enough. It was all in good fun for me, at least. So
Yeah.
Consider
I
it
mean-
a term of endearment.
I mean, wait a second.
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
Wait a second, though. You called me a name too, just so you know. I don't remember what
Yeah.
it was, but
in jest, probably.
yeah, but I'm not upsetty spaghetti about that.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't feel like this was a particularly unpleasant exchange or that there was tactics here which were untoward or anything like that. I feel like I was completely good faith and explained that I also had a burden of proof and an affirmative position, took an affirmative position. I didn't just pepper you. But so I don't know what the fuck they're talking. I think it's just like nobody's ever going to be fucking good enough for whatever the standards are that these fucking people have. So fuck them. That's what I think. Fuck them.
This was
Fuck you,
a
leftist.
fantastic.
Fuck you, leftist. Chatter, not you.
I'm not even a leftist, so I don't
The
take
chatter,
it personally.
The chatter.
This was a fantastic debate. I wanted to go longer for the open dialogue because it's so good. I was like, I don't want to meddle. This is so good. Folks, check out our guest links in the description box. You've listened this long. There's something valuable from reading or listening to their position straight from them. So check them, even if you don't agree with them, check them out. But I want to say thank you, Adam and Andrew. This is a fantastic debate.
Thank you for having us.
Can we give it a closing statement now, James?
Yeah, that works for me.
I'll keep mine super brief, under 2 minutes, if you want to do that, Adam. It's up to
Yeah,
you,
I'm
though. I don't
Probably
care.
going to have like 30 seconds. I didn't really prepare one, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you get the last word because you had the first open.
Sure.
That's usually the fair way to go. So I'm just going to point out that there was a ton of contradictions here that I pointed out, P and not P at the same time. There was a really bizarre exchange which happened towards the early middle part of the debate. So maybe that's a contradiction, early middle. I don't think so, though. But where my opponent was trying to get me, bizarrely enough, to concede that if his definition was true, would his definition be true? Or is it the case that if I conceded that this would mean this ideology is so, that it would be so? Made no sense to me. We got caught up there for a little bit. But ultimately, here's the issue that we have. The issue is that my opponent, like many progressives, I was actually surprised he took the debate. Most progressives don't, for exactly this reason. They make an appeal to modern scholars without understanding any of the source material or anything that they're referencing at all. They just don't even understand any of it. None of it. And so they just make this general appeal, broad appeal to a single authority, and then say, well, because this guy's widely regarded as an authority, he should be trusted. When you ask him, but what makes what he's saying true? What are we going to reinforce that with that makes you think that this is true? They have nothing, because they don't actually understand what the source material for this is. And that's really important. I actually took the time for years to learn this, because third positionism is a thing that I, as a Christian, Christian populist or Christian nationalist, however you want to frame it, pushed back against as a potential threat to my ideology, which I want to see instituted in these fine United States. So I would just say that what I did was try to encompass a holistic approach, explain to you the historic standard for this, why it exists, why it is that Trump can't fall under these things. And the best my opponent could really come up with was this bizarre notion that there's a rhetorical standard which he's using, which he would slip between the rhetorical standard and then towards actualization of the thing. So anytime, in other words, Trump didn't fit in action, the standard of what he considered fascism to be, he would move over to, he rhetorically fits it, though, which on its face is silly. And the reason it's silly is because fascism itself and the philosophy of pure act and idealism is talking about how this ideology acts in the world and how it is that fascists engage in action in the world. The idea that you're a rhetorical ultra nationalist, right, is fucking silly. It's just saying, well, he uses what's perceived to him as ultra nationalist propaganda while being a nationalist in action. That's a way for him, I think, to try to morally load what fascism means onto his opposition, to vilify and demonize him, though perhaps he specifically does not. Credit where credit's due, at least not often. He does have to admit that, I mean, the left overwhelmingly does this. They call ICE agents walking down the road fucking fascist. It's crazy. And that's utilizing the morally loaded aspect of this. So I think it's super important. And I think that the debate is important. Why? Because we have an entire political swath of political enemies who are trying to label all of us as this thing, and they don't even fucking understand what it is. So,
Adam, however long you need.
Sure. A lot of this debate kind of felt like Andrew was trying to shoehorn me into a position by projecting his interpretation of my definition onto my definition rather than trying to understand what I actually meant by my definition. Rhetoric, I think, is critical in establishing legitimacy for governments. We can laugh, haha, rhetoric is not actually action, but I do think that the legitimacy of the state is one of the most important parts of fascism, is justifying its abuses of power and justifying its centralization of power. And as I said, that is where propaganda and rhetoric are extremely important, because the act of a government does not exist in a vacuum. The government has to actually package and market that act to the people. And ideally, they want to try to get support from the people, or at least compliance, if not support. I do think that broadly speaking, it's important to look at fascism, at least as I consider it, as a behavioral pattern that is used to establish a power structure. And when we see that history rhymes, we should probably pay attention. And I think that defining fascism as a static state, which is what I would call probably final stage fascism, is a little bit reductive to me, a little bit binary and black and white. But with that being said, I think we did both agree that the word is a little bit overused, or has been overused up until now. I probably would not have called anyone a fascist up until Donald Trump, but a lot of people threw that word around, and now it's become a situation where when I call Donald Trump a fascist, people think I'm part of that crowd that calls everyone a fascist, when in reality, I actually use the word very, very precisely, at least as far as I'm concerned, and very, very restrictively. Not many other people I call a fascist. With that being said, I had fun. Thanks again for hosting us, James. And I hope that the audience, even if they think I'm like a commie leftist or something, had a good time watching us, because I did.
you can do this again next time, whatever it is you want to talk about, policies, whatever. I don't care.
For sure.
It was fantastic indeed. I'm going to let our guests go, folks, but they're linked in the description box, including if you're listening via the podcast. I'll be back in just a moment, so stick around.
Take care, James.
Yeah. I'm that guy. Get out of here.
Okay, 3, 2. Is that? Oh, there it is. Thank you for your patience. That was amazing. Seriously, that was such a great debate. I am like just... I expected it would go well, but that was just fantastic. It was an amazing back and forth. It was a great Q&A. Thank you for all your questions, folks. You helped make this great with your great questions. All of those were great questions. We do appreciate that. There are some weird ones, but they were great. Now, I want to say thank you for being members, Exotic Spida, John M, 1518. Thank you guys for watching. Big stuff coming up tomorrow. JF returns. He's going to debate counterpoints on whether or not the U.S. should drop Israel like a bad habit. In particular, should the U.S. stop supporting Israel? That is tomorrow night. That's going to be juicy, to say the least. Also coming up this week, another upcoming debate on Wednesday, pro-life versus pro-choice. This is about the first time in a year that we've hosted this topic. We don't do it often, but Taylor Fogarty returns to take on arch nemesis First Amender. That is going to be, or all the nicknames you guys have for him. But it's going to be a lively one. We're excited about that. And we might have one on Tuesday, and this is, I'm trying to set it up. It depends on who we can find on whether or not Mr. Pretty was murdered. That's, of course, referring to yesterday You guys heard of a man in Minneapolis. He was shot, and the debate will be whether or not that shooting of him was justified or an accident or purposeful. That is maybe going to be on Tuesday, potentially with Alexander Madero, and then against a left-leaning opponent, which is yet to be named. I emailed a particular someone today, a very popular left-leaning debater, and we'll see if he gets back to me. He hasn't gotten back to me in like a year, and when all the invites I send. But this one, I'm like, he might go for this one. User, thanks for your feedback, says it was a bit of a struggle to watch initially. I think the Q&A made it better, and said if we get another debater like that, can we get the sides to agree on the definition of the title? I get what you mean. The only challenge is that before the debate, I can tell you in the messages with the debaters, it was kind of like the way and it was a little bit hard to understand, but the way I interpreted it was that they were like, hey, well, let's mull over the question of whether or not Trump is a fascist, given each of our respective definitions. And then there'd also be discussion on the definitions and like pushback. So I get what you mean, though. But yes, thank you guys for your support. And thanks for your super chat, Alexander Medeiros. Okay, sorry, it's Medeiros, not Madero. Sorry about that, Alexander. Thank you for your super chat. So that might be on Tuesday. In fact, I think it's like a fairly high probability. I think I can find, even if this particular left-leaning debater, whose name rhymes with, I don't know, Estony, even if he can't make it on Tuesday, I think I can find another left-leaning debater that would be willing to debate Alexander. User... Oh, yes, we got that. Thanks for your kind words. Hit that like if you haven't yet. We do appreciate that support and other upcoming debates. So we've got a lot. This next month, we want to work on getting new faces. So Fearless Truth, he's a Christian apologist. We're hoping to book him on the 6th. I'm still waiting to hear back. That would be potentially against Planet Peterson. That's totally potentially. I haven't talked to Planet Peterson at all about that. Then potentially Andrew Wilson returning to debate. There are two people I've got to run by Andrew in terms of, hey, Andrew, you want to debate these guys because they've reached out to me wanting to debate you. Whether or not Andrew goes for it, I don't know. He's got a lot of debate requests. So those potential topics, I can't remember what the one was with Danny. But Danny and Brandon, one of them would be like a denomination topic. One of them would be whether or not the church should accept LGBTQ. So those might happen. Like I said, that's totally pie in the sky. I haven't reached out to anybody about those yet, but they are things that we're like kind of looking ahead at some of the juicy inside stuff. Danitos Dukes, thanks for being with us. As Justin Mike, so I see you there in chat, said Tuesday for the ICE shooting debate and Wednesday for pro-choice, pro-life. At what time, please? That's correct. You've got it right for the days, and the time would be 9 p.m. Eastern. Tonight we started an hour early because Adam Khan has to wake up super early. So, by the way, we appreciate Adam being a good sport. As I think it's pretty late where he is, and but he said he'd be willing to stay long. So we appreciate that. Thanks for being a channel member, Neo Debates and Exotic Spida. And let's see here. Dragon First 1-1 and CSS Element, as well as John 1518. Thanks for being channel members. If you haven't yet, consider joining our channel membership tiers. The reason is this Saturday. So it's only 6 days away. DebateCon 7. It's going to be huge, you guys. We expect it to sell out, and it is controversial. So you probably saw the tweet I put out today. There was a Muslim extremist who did threaten the event. I'll talk about that in just a second. Thanks for your super chat, Mason Miller 7991. Thank you for your super chat. I'm sorry, the guests have already been dismissed. We've already let them go, so I can't read it to them for the Q&A. You might be behind in the stream. But in terms, okay, sorry for leaving you on a cliffhanger there. Back to the tweet that I put out this morning. So basically, David Wood is a very popular Christian apologist, and he has been threatened by Muslim who there was an audio recording where he had said something to the effect of, it was, you could say, intimated or implied, but it was very obviously he was saying that he was planning to have David Wood shot. So we take it, obviously, every conference. We've got a lot of experience. We take every conference very seriously for the security. We have armed security. We notify local authorities to invite them to come to the event, as well as our hired security that we hire. Usually that's like the helpful. You when you hire your own security, they're more willing to say like they can send a police officer over just for free to help as well, rather than relying purely on the police. So we do have multiple strategies, and we do, I can't go into the details of the security because we want to keep it private, because it's just not smart for us to let the completely let it out there in case an evildoer wanted to have that advantage. We want to have somewhat an element of surprise. So we can tell you a couple things that we do. We do have armed security. So it's like they are armed, like they're packing heat. And then we also use a metal detector wands at the door. And that's just so we can be sure that we want the armed security to be armed, and we don't want someone who shouldn't be armed there. We have considered whether or not we would have, long story short, another detail would be that, thanks for subscribing, Big One GN6QJ. We appreciate that support. And we also, that's funny, it's Jadine, you're a good joke, we also have uniform security and then ununiformed security, because that's, as you probably know, if someone was wanting to go in and do wrong, they would probably target people in uniform first, because they're thinking to take out those people who could stop them. And so we do, you could say, employ both uniformed security that's armed and ununiformed. And also, though, Bob is my right-hand man. He's got 20 years of military experience, because to be honest, I don't have experience about this. I know the basics just from what Bob has told me in the different conferences we've done together, and he's been with me since the very start. And so we've got a great relationship. I trust Bob wholeheartedly. He's very competent. He's a great guy. But yeah, long story short, someone did threaten David, and now I just saw a stream from David Wood tonight. I just saw it was like a headline that said something about a price they were putting on his head, because I think that we'll see. But the point is, I will read you the tweet. In fact, I'll even show you the tweet, and that way you know what I'm talking about, though. So I also have here my little soundboard is, I do enjoy prank phone calls, so I'll give you an example. Is Brian O'Brien.
My apologies.
Oh, it's a little bit slow. Just bear with me. Now, we might have that debate on Tuesday, or was it Tuesday? Yes, Tuesday. Alexander Medeiros, I hope you're feeling better. I know that you said you were going through strep. Minute Timmy, I see you there in the live chat. Thanks for being with us, and thank you for being here. User RU4, as well as Linux Audio 100. Good to see you. Nadir Ahmed, good to see you. Longtime debater on the show. Nadir just had a debate on Friday. I don't know if you guys saw that. And then let's see. I'm going to read the tweet. I'll even pull it up here. And I've got to tell you, I'll read it first as I try to pull it up. We at Modern Day Debate are firmly, it says, quote, "We have been made aware of public threats made by a Muslim extremist toward DebateCon 7. We will not be intimidated, and the conference will continue as usual. We will have armed security on site at all times, and they will not hesitate to swiftly handle any potential threats." And that's the way it's always been. We're not going to let anybody intimidate us or try to scare us out of having a conference. We're going to do it. We're going to have armed security, and nothing is going to stop us. We're going to be like a locomotive barreling down the rail tracks of free speech. We are determined, no matter how many hurdles come up, Modern Day Debate is hosting our conference come hell or high water, and that's going to be Saturday, January 31st in Houston, Texas, and that's with God's blessing. We're excited about it. It is going to be a fantastic debate. So it's Jadine says, price on his head, why? So I think it was about 2 weeks ago or so. David Wood, his wife, so he's like he always, his YouTube channel is focused on critiquing and arguing against Islam. And many Muslims don't like him. And oftentimes it's satire as well. Someone doxed his wife. They doxed his address and his wife's cell number while he was out of town. And then she started getting these threats over her text messages from random numbers. And then David is like-minded with modern day debate. The research, I can tell you from my background in psychology, the research on bullies is that you are supposed to push back. That's actually empirically the best response you can give. And David Wood basically started eating the Quran because that's like a way of desecrating the Quran. So David said, hey, if Muslims, if you're going to do this, this is what I'm going to do. And so he started doing that on his live streams, and that fired up people more. And that's how we got to this, what's the word I'm looking for? Circumstance in which someone had threatened David's life. Now, I will show you the tweet, but want to say, though, we are absolutely determined. We're excited for this conference. It's going to be a huge debate. Conference is David Wood versus Muslim metaphysician. It's also going to be Mike Jones versus Hassan Shibli. And it's also going to be apostate prophet versus Muslim metaphysician, and then Daniel Hakikachu versus atheist Danny Philtalk. Now I'm going to just load up the old window capture, and then I'll show you the tweet. We are excited, though. I've got to tell you. Okay. Where is this? There it is. Okay. So there you can see that was the exact wording of the tweet. And then what I'm going to do, though, is I want to tell you about our memberships for the channel. So even if you're like, I can't make it, James, you can watch the entire conference live from the comfort of your own home. So if you're in Antarctica, if you were in Australia, you're like, James, I just can't make it. Come on, man. Don't worry. The entire conference will be live streamed for our Final Word channel members. So if you sign up at the Final Word channel membership tier, you can watch the entire conference from home. And if you haven't yet, check out those memberships right now. Click the join button. If you sign up right now, that'll guarantee that you'd be able to watch it on the conference day, as that's only a week away and your membership lasts a month. And I've got to tell you, though, we are excited for a lot of stuff coming up, including that juicy debate tomorrow on whether or not America should continue to support Israel. And then let me see, other stuff. I don't mention this enough. We have a Discord. So the Discord has 15,000 members. Shane and Hannah have made this Discord awesome. I'm putting that in the live chat right now. So if you want to click on the link, the Modern Day Debate Discord is a juggernaut thanks to Shane and Hannah. I honestly am a boomer, so I don't know how to do Discord, but I do plan on coming in there at some point. And I'm sorry but yeah, I'm a boomer. And this one, let's see. I'm looking at other things that I wanted to share with you. So I will show you over here. Let me just jump in here. I'm going to move this up. Okay. And then I'll share other stuff. So as you can see, okay, here we go. Thanks for your patience. So at the bottom right of your screen, that's DebateCon 7. Those are some of the guests that will be at DebateCon 7, but not all of them. And then also, so grab your tickets. They're linked in the description box. Then we have our members-only channel playlist. So I will show this to you right now and put this in the old chat. We do have a lot of debates that are members only. Now, one reason why they're members only is because some of them are, what's the word I'm looking for? Members. Inappropriate. Where YouTube, we're kind of like, would YouTube? Like, would we get in trouble? Like, I think that we wouldn't, but at the same time, I don't know. And the reason is because some of these, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen, some of these debaters are controversial. So, for example, Nick Fuentes, Stefan Molyneux, Milo Yiannopoulos, and we're at 2 out of 3 for today's membership goal. So consider joining the Modern Day Debate channel memberships. And then let me just, my page is crashing. I can't see the live chat. Give me a second, I'll catch up. I wanted to share the playlist, but my YouTube tab is, I don't know why it does this. I can't figure that out. But for some reason, whenever, it's only when I'm streaming that my tabs will crash. And juiciest and wildest debates. Here's that playlist. I'm insane with anger. 2 seconds. I'm going to reopen YouTube. But let me know where you are watching from. I'm in Las Vegas right now. I'm not seeing any of the storms that have hit this weekend. Maybe you have. I don't know. Okay, so check out our Modern Day Debate members only playlist. Is that I put in the live chat right now. And then we're at 2 out of 3, so consider joining as a channel member right now as we have DebateCon 7 coming up in 1 week. 6 days, actually, so less than a week. Here's another one. If you have Twitch and if you have Amazon Prime, you have a free membership that you can use to subscribe. It's like your gifted membership. You can subscribe to Modern Day Debates Twitch, which I just put in the live chat. And that helps support Modern Day Debate because Amazon Prime gives you your free Twitch subscription that you can decide on which channel to use that free subscription on. And so if you have a Twitch and you have Amazon Prime and you have not used your free membership, well, now is your opportunity. You can do that for Modern Day Debate. We appreciate that. And then our Facebook page. So where is this? There it is. Gregory Stevens. Now, I'm putting our Facebook page. This is our new Facebook page with just clips. We are going to get that active again. Check that out. That's in the live chat as well. But tell me, like I said, where you're from. Ivani, am I saying it right? Ivani Zundel. Thanks for coming by. I see you there. Justa Myexo. Thank you for coming by. And then Linux Audio 100 says you can slow go to Discord, use search servers for Modern Day Debate, and that gets server as well. Oh, thank you for letting me know that. And then Shanzitu 5682, thank you for coming by. Says, what topic are they debating? Which one? Which debate? Which day? Tomorrow is that's okay. Tomorrow is on whether or not the U.S. should continue supporting Israel. JF will be arguing no. Counterpoints will be arguing yes. And then Catman G6U, thanks for coming by. I see you there. As well as Hope Bloom Music. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for hitting that like button. We're at 684. So that means if we just hit 16 more likes, that'll be 700. Amazing. Which, by the way, if you become a channel member, which we can totally get to 3 channel memberships this stream. That's the goal for this stream. Is you can use these custom Modern Day Debate emojis, such as the ones I'm putting in live chat right now that say amazing and soy boy. Now, Danito Dukes, good to see you. I see you there in the old live chat. Momentium, I see you too. Thanks for being by. As well as Del Bridge, Big One, GN6QJ, Matthew Culbertson. Good to see you here, brother. I just saw you now. I'm behind on the live chat. Thanks for coming by. And he says, yes, it's true. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We are going to have this conference. We've got our security hired, and we will be, like I said, we've already contacted the police. So last time we were in Houston, the police were actually very supportive, the local police. We actually had 2 officers that came to the event. And so we do appreciate that. That was awesome of them. And Del Bridge, good to see you. Let's see here. More Ron, please. Thanks for coming by. Joseph Mullins, good to see you there in the live chat. And then let me just catch up. Minute Timmy, thanks for coming by. Says, is it worth watching? I missed it. Yes, this debate is absolutely worth watching. And I'm very serious about that, because normally I might say that like half-heartedly, just because I'm always going to say yes. You know that. But I'll give you reasons tonight. So I'm not just going to say yes and just like, oh, he's good. Is that Adam and Andrew, very quick on their feet, very quick-witted, just very rhetorically smooth. And so, yeah, it was a fantastic debate tonight. I have to be honest. I thought Adam was going to be good because Adam's been on Jubilee multiple times. So, you know, if Jubilee has you back, it means they're like, hey, yeah, like, you're good. We'll have you back. And he's been on Jubilee with like Cenk Uygur, and I can't remember, I think Ben Shapiro. And so that's why I invited him, as I was like, yeah, that's a good sign. And I can tell you, Adam, I thought he was going to be good. I thought it was a fantastic debate. He was very quick on his feet, so it made for a fun debate for Andrew. It's hard to find good opponents on either side. But let me just catch up here. Cornell Rusu 9789, thank you for coming by. And Matthew Culbertson says, it's cold in Texas. How cold are we talking? I hope you're all right there. And good old Lufkin, Northern Freedom, says, smash the like button. I couldn't agree more. Do smash the like button. And thank you for your support. I appreciate that, Northern Freedom. Now are we at 700 likes yet? Let me refresh the page. We're so close. I can taste it. We're at 693. So we're 7 likes away. And if we hit that big 700, exactly 484 told me he will delete his OnlyFans and live a new life. So help exactly to give, to do away with that old life and help us get to 700 likes. I made that up. Catman G6, but do hit like, says, is this your full-time job now, James, or do you have another job? It is full-time. I do teach as like a hobby. So the program I got my PhD at will sometimes say, James, we got a remote class. Do you want to teach it? It's a master's level class. And it's done remotely, purely remotely, which is, for me, it's awesome because I move often. And I do plan on settling. This year, I'm going to finally settle down, and the plan is to finally settle down in Phoenix. But before I do that, I've got one short little stint. I want to go and live in Los Angeles a bit, partly because you know how Jubilee is filmed out there. Is I want to do some types of work out there, and Sean from Uncensored America, which that is another channel that's exploding right now. Sean has taught me so much to improve modern day debate, and so he's actually going to help me as he's moving out there shortly as well. And then, but I plan on settling down probably in Phoenix. Matthew Culbertson says 21 degrees. That is cold. That's way colder than here because it does get a little chilly. It only gets down to like 40, so it's not bad in Las Vegas. But 21 is cold. If there's any sort of breeze, that is just frigid. And more Ron, please, says both Adam and Andrew did good tonight. Yeah, it was a fantastic debate. Tom Kalishi, good to see you there, brother. I see ya. I am glad that you are with us, Tom, and let me tell you why. I have to get this. Let me just make the screen bigger. Such a boomer. Give me a sec here. Oh, come on. I've got my little soundboard I wanted to play with. My new toy, thanks to Tom.
Al's Fun Center in Pineville.
Yes. Now, I love these prank jokes, these prank phone calls that they use soundboards like this. So I just can't get enough of them. Yeah, it's the best.
I'm just as much of a coward as you could possibly think.
That's Brian O'Brien from Tradio. That's one soundboard. But my favorite always is Fred Herbert.
Where's she in custody?
And Exotic Sighted says Tradio. That's right. That's from the sound. That's from Brian O'Brien as well. And thank you, Tom Kalishi. Am I saying it right? Is it pronounced Tom Kalish? Thank you for sending that soundboard. But yes, let's see. Now, I was like, I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody in chat. But yeah, thank you guys for your support. We're so close to 700. Help exactly do, oh, wow, we got to 700 and wow, thank you. 703 Neo Debate says. Thank you guys for that support. Now, let me just share a couple of other things here.
What's your word?
I don't know what that even said. That was not a good soundboard quote. But that members only playlist, you can see there at the bottom right. As I mentioned, DebateCon 7 will be available via pay-per-view, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen. And that's if you become a Final Word channel member. And that helps us put on these events. So the way that these events usually go is, and I'm not doing this out of pity, like it works out, but it just shows you how it is kind of razor thin, is I'm always super frugal when setting up these conferences. So like, we do Holiday Inn, it's like, it's fine. Come on, cut me some slack. Okay. We do Holiday Inn. And the reason is the events themselves, we usually lose a little bit of money. And like sometimes nothing crazy, but we usually end up losing money even when we have the revenue from ticket sales, because people buy their tickets and they watch it in person. That's actually our biggest revenue stream. But ad revenue, and when people sign up for channel memberships to watch it live at home, that's actually a huge form of revenue that gets us so we're no longer losing money on the event. And so it actually comes out a bit ahead. So that's why I had mentioned that. So that's a way to support the channel, as channel memberships, is we do appreciate that. And you also get the perks such as those emojis you can use all the time in the live chat. You can call your friends in chat a soy boy with those custom emojis, as well as now tomorrow's debate. I told you about that. Should the U.S. cut off Israel? And then also our socials. So we do have an Instagram, an X, a Facebook, and a Discord. Matthew Culbertson says 702. That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much for those likes. I do appreciate that more than you know. Now, lately I've been watching the IT Crowd. Have you guys ever seen that? It's from England. Dope 1258. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. And Ivan Izundal says, good evening, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you. And we are excited, though. We are striving to be a fully neutral debate platform. How are we neutral? One, we want to have fair moderation where each side gets fair and equal time, as well as, because a lot of people lately on Twitter, I've seen some folks who are like, modern day debate's not neutral, like James is a Christian. And it's true, like I've never tried to hide that. It's been like open. If people ask, I would tell them. And they're like, oh, like, I'll give you an example. I don't want to say who, but like a couple people on Twitter of a particular religion, they're like, modern day debate is biased because James is a Christian. So, that's like, well, wait a minute. Like, and so they'll say, our guys shouldn't go debate on that channel, our guys from our religion. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. So then Christians shouldn't go and debate on your channels either, because your guys' channel owners or moderators are Muslim. I just said it's Muslim. And But to be fair, a lot of Muslims are actually super pro modern day debate. So I want to be fair. Like there are a ton of modern day debate fans that are Muslim, so we appreciate them like a ton. It's just that there's like a small percentage, and just like there are some, like there's a small percentage of Christians even and atheists. In fact, there's a sizable percentage of atheists, but still a minority who are critics of modern day debate. But the other thing is that in addition to equal time and moderation, modern day debate is different than, let's say, these Muslim channels are like, the debate should be over here on like, Central Dawa's channel, like the, Muslim apologetics channel. Is the difference is, well, but modern day debate only has debates. Like we never, at the end of the debate, even during these like post-debate chats, I never say like, oh, wow, Adam or Andrew like did so bad. Like, we just want people to make up their own minds. The purpose of modern day debate is not to try to sway people in either direction. That's why we host literally only debates. And I get a ton of emails where they're like, oh, so-and-so is publishing a book and they want to come on for an interview. And I'm like, first, I'm a little bit annoyed, to be honest, because I'm like, do you even watch us? Because it's like only debates. It even says that in like our channel banner. But so we have a lot of people that are like, yeah, can we come on for an interview? And I'm like, no. I actually just don't even respond because I figure I'm like, they don't even check. They don't even like know about our channel other than the name and the subscriber count or something. And so that's one thing is it's purely debates here. Like it's fully neutral as it can be. But yes, Alex Ojidugu, did I say that right? Thank you for being here. I see you there in the old live chat. Now, we are at 707 likes. I appreciate that more than you know. I should take a walk. I want to stay longer, but my back gets really tight if I sit for too long, so I should start walking. And I'm tempted to eat. I found some discounted Halloween candy just yesterday while cleaning out my closet. Hallelujah. It's amazing. So whenever there's a holiday, it's really special for me because I always buy discounted candy the day after or maybe several days after that holiday. So I go to the grocery store or Walmart. I'm trying to remember. I think I got this from Kroger. In East Texas where Matthew is, it's called Kroger. But here in Las Vegas, it's owned by Kroger, but it's called, what is it? I think it's Smith's here. Or Fry's, I can't remember. I think it's Smith's. And I find this 50 or 75% off candy. Obviously, I buy the chocolate. And so I'm kind of tempted to have a little snacky here tonight. I told you I don't like the word snack. Snacky is acceptable, but snack, we don't do that. So that's why when snacky as a noun is okay. You say, I'm going to have a little snacky here. But as a verb, I don't say, oh, I snack during the day. I say I graze because I told you I don't like the word snack as a verb. Now, Minute Timmy says modern day should do some debates on some modern topics. Yeah, I'm open to that. It's not that I personally have anything against debates on like AI. It's just that it's tough to like, we can try new topics, but I got to tell you, it's like, they just don't usually do that well. And so I don't know if it was like someone really popular on that topic, then I would, but otherwise, we probably wouldn't do that. So, but yes, but thank you guys for hanging out here. You guys make this fun. I'm going to try it. Let me just quick check if there are any other little things here. And yeah. Okay. See, this is one thing. So I mentioned that it's actually coming up really fast. Let me look at the calendar here. I think it's like 10 days away. I'm moving, Lord willing, to Los Angeles. So it's going to be the 25th or 3, so 5. Okay, it's like 12 days. Yeah. I'm moving to Los Angeles, and part of it, as you can see, the bottom right of your screen, where see where it says "Want to participate in our upcoming group dialogues on Christianity? Sign up below." That's why. Big part of it is if you do want to be part of these conversations that are in person, so these are going to be a lot like Jubilees, middle ground, where it'll be like a group of four guys that are atheists, group of four that are Christian, and then it's going to be like a group dialogue on why they think Christianity is true or false. And that's something that I want to film in Los Angeles. So if you're in Los Angeles or Phoenix, because I'll eventually end up in Phoenix, there's in the description box right now, there is a list. Yeah, where it says want to participate, application to participate in our upcoming group dialogues in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, or Phoenix. So if you'd like to be a part of them, check out that link. It's quite buried in the description, so it's like kind of toward the end-ish. And let's see. Oh, yeah. 2 Facebook pages. I'll put the link for our Facebook page if you didn't know about that in the old live chat. And this is our new clips page. I think I might have already put it in there and pinned it. Let me see. There, now it's in there. And that's if you enjoy clips and you like to see them. But also, I would encourage you to check out our social media links, which are in the description box. They're toward the top of the description box. Check out those links because this is important. If you are like, hey, I want to know when DebateCon might be near my city, there's a higher chance of you hearing about it before the event takes place if you're following us on our socials, because we always put it out on our socials, like Instagram, X, and Facebook especially. And then Discord, we should put it in there more. I just realized that I don't know if we do. I think they probably, the moderators probably share about that, and they probably, without me even asking. So, which is why they're amazing. But that way you get notifications on when. And then we have an email list as well. Yeah, our insiders email list. That's in the description box. That's at the bottom of our socials. If you want an update on upcoming events, you can sign up for our email list. And that also, we actually will provide promo codes for DebateCon if you want a discount on tickets too. So thank you guys for your support. You guys make this fun. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. We're excited about the future. A lot of big stuff coming up here at Modern Day Debate because we believe YouTube deserves a better class of debate channel, and we're going to give it to them. So thanks for your support. We'll see you at the next one, which is, like I said, tomorrow night. I hope you have a great night. Amazing!